Chapter 148. Time flew by. Every day, Yixing would come to Wansheng Slope to listen to Xianxia's teachings on the green eyes. His super brain was powerful, and he had the ability to see far into the distance. His goals were astonishing, so when it came to cultivating the green eyes, it was a natural process for him, and he improved at lightning speed. Days passed and soon 10 days had passed. On this day, after Xianxia finished teaching Yixing, he asked, "Yixing, you've been cultivating the green eyes for 10 days, have you had any results?" Yixing nodded. Xianxia was surprised. Eye techniques were not like other martial arts, they were extremely difficult to cultivate. In the past, he had also taught Wang Feng the Eye of Azure Clouds, but after 3 months of teaching, there was no effect. This caused Xianxia to decisively give up. Wang Feng was not cut out for learning eye techniques, much less archery. Xianxia wiped away all of Wang Feng's memories of the Eye of Azure Clouds. Now, he had only taught Yixing for 10 days. Today's question was just a casual gesture, but unexpectedly, Yixing nodded, indicating that there were results. Xianxia's eyes were filled with joy. "How far can you see now?" For example, how far can you see insects, flying ants, and other small animals? Yixing's eyesight allowed him to see things from 10 miles away. If he used his green eyes, he would be able to see even further. However, Yixing obviously couldn't include the superbrain's ability to see things from afar. Otherwise, Xianxia would probably be shocked by what he saw. Yixing did not use the ability to see far, but only the green eyes. Soon, his eyes were covered with a layer of green light, and it was as if the insects 3 miles away were right in front of him. Then Yixing used the ability to see far, and his eyesight increased by several times. It was not just 10 miles, but the furthest he could see insects was 15 miles. With the superbrain's long-range vision, not only did Yixing cultivate green eyes very quickly, but he also strengthened its effects. In his normal state, he could only see up to 3 miles away, but when he used long-range vision, he could still see up to 5 miles away, even if it was 5 miles away. This had almost doubled the long-distance vision of the green eyes by 60 to 70%. The effect was heaven-defying. Yixing simply stated the distance of his vision under normal circumstances. "I can see clearly up to 3 miles away, which is about 1,600 meters. For an ordinary person, being able to clearly see insects and flying ants dozens of meters away was already considered an excellent eyesight. However, martial artists, through cultivation, would improve all aspects of their bodies, and their eyesight would become better and better. An 8th-level Grandmaster's eyesight should be able to see insects and flying ants 500 to 600 meters away, which was 1,000 steps away. Yixing, on the other hand, could see 1,600 meters away, which was about 3 times the eyesight of an 8th-level Grandmaster. It was obvious that the green eyes had greatly improved his eyesight. Xianxia's expression became 10 times more joyful, and he was shocked. "You are indeed a martial arts genius. In just 10 days, you have such a great effect." Yixing smiled. If he told Xianxia that he could see insects and flying ants 15 miles away, he wondered how shocked Xianxia would be. Of course, he could only think about it in his heart. He could not say it out loud. Xianxia said, "Since your eyesight has already reached such a level, then, next, you can cultivate it simultaneously with your archery. How far have you cultivated your origin returning energy, invincible avatar, and gale arrow technique?" Yixing said, "Origin returning force 5th level, invincible golden body nearing completion, and gale arrow technique reaching perfection." In these 10 days, although he had been learning the green cloud eyes from Xianxia at the Wansheng Slope during the day, Yixing had not been idle during the rest of the time. He had improved in all aspects. After 10 days of cultivating the origin returning force 5th level, Yixing had improved again. In terms of inner strength quality, Yixing was comparable to a late 9th level martial grandmaster. As for the cultivation of the invincible golden body, Xianxia had given him more than 10 kinds of top-quality herbs, so it was natural that the speed was fast. Now, there were still a few top-quality herbs that he had not used. In another 8 to 10 days, the invincible golden body would reach perfection. A superior body refining cultivation method at the Great Completion realm would have a very powerful physical body. It was enough to condense a star vortex and break through to the martial sage realm. With just the physical strength, it would be enough to crush most 9th grade grandmasters. As for the Gale Arrow technique, Yixing had already reached perfection when he was in Dongshan City. The reason why he had not reached perfection was that he was still lacking a little bit of understanding. He needed to train himself through actual combat to break through that barrier. After that, he had enough experience through actual combat. Originally, he would have broken through to perfection very quickly. However, because he had been severely injured by Dongxianing, he had fainted. Therefore, he only understood that little bit of understanding when he woke up, and the Gale Arrow technique had successfully broken through to perfection. Now, Yixing's physical strength and inner strength were much stronger than before he had fainted. The Gale Arrow technique had also become more powerful. If he were to meet a martial saint like Lu Chuanxiao again, Yixing was confident that he could fight him. The arrows he shot should be able to threaten a martial saint. However, in front of a martial saint, he was still far from enough. The Origin Returning Force 5th level, and the Gale Arrow technique has reached perfection? Zi Shanho was surprised. He was not surprised at all by the cultivation of the invincible golden body. However, the Origin Returning Force and the Gale Arrow technique had shocked him. There were very few 9th level martial grandmasters who had cultivated the Origin Returning Force 5th level. Basically, only martial grandmasters who were at the later stage of the 9th level and above could cultivate to this level. However, Yixing had only cultivated the Origin Returning Force 5th level for 10 days. As for the Gale Arrow technique, it was an upper-class martial technique. It was difficult to cultivate an upper-class martial technique to perfection. Moreover, archery had always been more difficult to cultivate than other martial arts. However, not only had Yixing cultivated the Gale Arrow technique to perfection, but he had also broken through to perfection. Although there was only one step between perfection and perfection, the difficulty was unusually high. He had blocked 99% of the martial artists. Among the 9th level martial grandmasters, there were many who had cultivated an upper-class martial technique to perfection. However, those who had cultivated an upper-class martial technique to perfection were less than 1 in 100. Zi Shanho had originally thought that he had already thought highly of Yixing. However, it seemed that he had still underestimated Yixing. Although Yixing's heavenly fate was ordinary and could even be said to be poor, in other aspects, he could already be described as monstrous. At the very least, Zi Shanho had never seen such a monstrous martial arts genius in his life. The only thing that could hinder such a person was that his cultivation could not increase. Once there was an opportunity, he could transform into a true dragon and become a supreme monstrous genius. As the saying went, a golden carp was not a fish in a pond. Once there was an opportunity, he would become a dragon. Zi Shanho was looking forward to it. He felt that the possibility of a miracle happening to Yixing was increasing. He let out a long sigh and said, "Yixing, you have really made me look at you in a new light. You are much better than I had imagined. From today onwards, I will teach you the stacking wave arrow technique." The stacking wave arrow technique is a supreme level archery technique. However, strictly speaking, the height of the stacking wave arrow technique far surpasses that of a supreme level martial technique. When cultivated to the extreme, you can completely compete with the spiritual martial realm. The stacking wave arrow technique of the supreme level archery technique has a total of 9 stacks. Once cultivated to the 9th layer, it is considered perfect. However, if one's inner strength is thick enough, it can reach beyond the 9th layer. As for how many layers one can stack, it depends on the thickness of one's inner strength and the degree of control. In other words, archery skills that surpass the 9th layer will surpass the limits of a supreme level martial technique and will be extremely powerful. Yixing listened with anticipation and said, "Master, if I am not a martial saint, but the stacking wave arrow technique reaches the 9th layer and above, can I kill a martial saint?" Zi Shanho nodded. In theory, it is possible. 10 layers of stacks is enough to threaten a martial saint who has just entered the star vortex realm. When the stacks of stacks reach a certain level, killing a martial saint is not a problem. However, even if you cultivate the origin returning force to the 6th layer and your cultivation reaches the limit of the 9th layer, the 9th layer is already the limit. It is almost impossible to surpass the 9th layer. Hearing this, Yi Xing was full of confidence. The strengthening effect of his origin returning force on his inner strength was higher than the normal origin returning force. Furthermore, his origin returning force was at the 7th layer. The normal origin returning force could reach the 9th layer at the 6th layer. If he cultivated the improved origin returning force to the 6th layer, there should be hope for him to surpass the 9th layer. If he cultivated it to the 7th layer, wouldn't it be possible for him to kill a martial saint? The sun and the moon alternated day after day. Yi Xing cultivated intensely every day. His progress in all aspects was extremely fast. His green eyes could clearly see the distance of insects and flying ants. From 3 li to 5 li, then to 7 li, this was under normal conditions. If he used the superbrain's vision, he could clearly see the distance of insects and flying ants to more than 20 li. This had already surpassed Zi Shanho's eyesight. Yi Xing cultivated the stacking wave arrow technique and reached the 3rd layer. Then he quickly reached the 4th layer, 5th layer, 6th layer. Half a month later, Yi Xing's stacking wave arrow technique had reached the 9th layer. His origin returning force had also broken through to the 6th layer. If he had more time, when he completely consolidated the 6th layer of origin returning force and was about to break through to the 7th layer, he might be able to surpass the 9th layer and reach the 10th layer. If that was the case, Yi Xing's stacking wave arrow technique with the 10th layer would give him the qualifications to challenge a martial saint. Without a doubt, the invincible golden body had reached the great completion stage. Yi Xing's only obstacle was how to cultivate the invincible golden body to the perfection stage. Perhaps he would need to go to the depths of the Green Cloud Mountain range to have a chance. However, he did not have this opportunity recently. The day of the Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment was getting closer and closer. Yi Xing had to become a disciple of the Falling Star sect first. According to the sect's rules, only in the sect could one receive the inheritance of the spiritual martial force. Martial saints were not allowed to privately send help, even if they were master and disciple. Unless you planned to not enter the sect for the rest of your life and become a rogue martial artist, the sect would not accept a disciple who already had the inheritance of the spiritual martial force. Most of the spiritual martial force could only be learned after becoming a martial saint. However, the inheritance was an exception. The inheritance referred to the cultivation technique. The cultivation technique was not restricted by the realm. In theory, even a normal warrior could receive the inheritance of the black tortoise. However, this was only in theory. Being able to learn it did not mean that one could master it. The following is forced. Please read. I really want to explode. I really want to write more words. I really want to update more. But I am really tired. Not only am I tired from writing, but I am also tired mentally. Moreover, the mental exhaustion is even more serious than writing words. The Archer God is still 1,300 votes away from first place in the monthly votes. With 10 or 20 votes a day, I can't see any hope of catching up. And I need a hope in my heart. This is my motivation to explode. The motivation to work hard. I want to ask, will the explosion continue? My answer is yes, I will continue. There is still a lot of time left in this month. In the future, not only will there be an explosion of 3 chapters, there will also be 4 chapters, or even more. However, I really need a little support from my brothers. I need to see a hope. Brothers, half of the month has passed. If there is a 2nd or 3rd monthly votes, please vote for the Archer God. Just 1 vote, okay? Chocolate, please. Chapter 149. Without step-by-step cultivation and consolidation, without rich martial arts knowledge, not to mention the black tortoise, even the lowest level of spirit martial inheritance, ordinary martial artists would not be able to learn it. Only by cultivating the highest level of cultivation methods to the highest level could one easily learn spirit level cultivation methods. This was also the time when the sect passed down the spirit martial inheritance. Spirit martial arts that used celestial essence as the prerequisite required one to break through to the star vortex realm and completely convert their internal strength into celestial essence. Spirit martial arts that were not related to celestial essence, such as the blue cloud eyes, could be cultivated without reaching the star vortex realm. Spirit-level cultivation methods were to cultivate celestial essence and allow one's cultivation to break through to the star vortex realm. This was also something that could be cultivated without reaching the star vortex realm. On this day, Xianxia only tested the effect of Yi Xing's cultivation and said, "Today, I will tell you a story." Yi Xing's eyes flashed and suddenly became interested. "Is it another legend?" Xianxia shook his head and motioned for Yi Xing to sit down. "No, it is a true story." Yi Xing heard Xianxia's tone was a bit dignified. After a short, "Oh," he sat cross-legged on the grass and no longer spoke, just listening to the story. Xianxia sat down opposite Yi Xing. Once upon a time, there was an outer sect elder of the Falling Star sect. He was a peak martial saint. At the age of 30, he married a wife and started a family. He longed for the stars and the moon and wanted to have a child. However, after more than 10 years of marriage, his wife never gave birth to a child. This made him very upset. At the age of 42, he ran away from home and wandered the world. Yi Xing thought that Xianxia was telling his own story, but after listening for a while, he felt that it was not the case. He did not ask and just listened quietly. In the past 7 years, this elder had traveled to several countries in the Qingyun region. He had been to the southern and northern parts of the Qingyun Mountains. Along the way, he had encountered dangers and suffered injuries. However, these setbacks did not make him want to return home. He just wanted to wander the world until one day. There was a twist in the story, and Yi Xing's ears perked up. Until one day, when he traveled to the Tianluo Kingdom, a big country in the north, he found an abandoned baby girl. His wandering heart finally felt like returning home. He adopted the baby girl and brought her back to the Luoxing Kingdom. When he returned home, he was ready to raise his daughter and live a peaceful life. Coincidentally, maybe it was because he was in a good mood when he returned home this time, but in just a few months, his wife was pregnant. Yi Xing blinked his eyes. And the story, elder of course. And at this point, Xianxia's face revealed a faint smile. Yi Xing also smiled. This was indeed something to be happy about. However, Yi Xing knew that this story was not over. Xianxia would not tell him a meaningless story, so he continued to listen quietly. The husband and wife raised their son and daughter. The children grew up day by day, and they also grew older day by day. Gradually, white hair appeared on their heads. However, they were always very happy because their 2 children were very capable. The son had an 8-star orange fate, and the daughter had a 9-star orange fate. From the beginning of their cultivation, they surpassed ordinary people and stood out among their peers. Since young, the 2 elders wanted to bring their son and daughter together. They hoped that they could live in harmony and have a happy relationship. In the future, they could become husband and wife. The 2 children did not disappoint the 2 elders. They were very close. When they were around 17 years old, they broke through the star vortex realm and became inner disciples of the Falling Star sect. This made the 2 elders very happy. Originally, everything should have developed beautifully, but Yi Xing's expression froze. There was another twist in the story. The smile on Xianxia's face had long disappeared. It was replaced by calmness as he continued to narrate. After becoming an inner disciple, the number of geniuses I came into contact with increased. Although the 8-star and 9-star orange fates were outstanding, they were not necessarily the highest. At that time, among the inner disciples, there was an enlightened Master Heaven's fate genius named Lu Tianyuan. Enlightened Master Heaven's fate is hard to come by in the Falling Star sect in dozens of years. Especially a 2-star yellow fate genius, he was the first in the Falling Star sect in 100 years. Moreover, Lu Tianyuan was the grandson of an inner sect elder. Naturally, he was fully nurtured by the sect. At this point, Yi Xing already had a premonition. As expected, Zi Shanho's following words confirmed his conjecture. After the old man's adopted daughter became an inner disciple, she fell in love with Lu Tianyuan. She herself was a 9-star orange fate genius, and in terms of talent, she was second only to Lu Tianyuan. Moreover, her appearance was second to none among the inner disciples. If Lu Tianyuan was a true dragon among the inner disciples, then she was a phoenix. No female disciple could surpass her limelight. How could Lu Tianyuan not be moved by the number one female disciple in terms of talent and appearance? The two quickly became entangled like glue. Yixing vaguely understood. The old man's son in the story was most likely Zi Shanho himself. As for the old man's adopted daughter, could she be the enemy that Zi Shanho spoke of? If she only fell in love with someone else, she shouldn't be considered an enemy. Yixing unconsciously glanced at Zi Shanho's legs. The following story should be related to his legs. Then, the person who caused his legs to be crippled should be his enemy. Only, he didn't know if it was Lu Tianyuan or the old man's adopted daughter who did it. Yixing felt a wave of disgust in his heart. At this point in the story, it had become the rhythm of two men fighting over a woman. Why was it so melodramatic and cliché? Zi Shanho's following words, however, made Yixing realize that he had guessed wrong, very wrong. Lu Tianyuan's aptitude was higher than the old man's son's, and his appearance was also better. He was a handsome and elegant gentleman. If the old man's adopted daughter only had a brotherly relationship with the old man's son, it was understandable that she fell in love with him. Although this made the old man and his son somewhat sad, they could only accept the reality. There are plenty of fish in the sea. The old man's son and adopted daughter grew up together. In fact, there were very few feelings between men and women. After the two separated, the old man's son was only sad for a short period of time, and then became more cheerful. As they grew older, the old man's adopted daughter and son became intermediate martial saints, and were promoted to core disciples. At this time, the old man's son met the true other half of his life, the core disciple of the Spirit Moon sect, Yun Xilan. The two of them fell in love with each other, and it was from Yun Xilan that the old man's son truly felt the taste of love. Seeing that the story had developed to the Spirit Moon sect, Yixing's spirits were lifted. Wei Qingxian was now in the Spirit Moon sect, and was the personal disciple of Master Yenyu. When Zi Shanho talked about Yun Xilan, his eyes revealed a rare tenderness. However, the tenderness in his eyes soon disappeared, and was replaced by fierceness. When the Qingyun ancient land opened, the outstanding disciples of the top 10 sects in the Qingyun region could enter and gain experience there. The old man's son and Yun Xilan obtained a great opportunity in the Qingyun ancient land. Originally, they could both break through the Stargang realm and become immortals, but Zi Shanho's tone suddenly became agitated, and his eyes flashed with hatred. He never thought that his sister would sneak attack them. Yun Xilan was killed on the spot, and his legs were cut off. He escaped with a small space-breaking spell, but the opportunity was taken away by the old man's adopted daughter. In the end, the old man's adopted daughter became an immortal in the Stargang realm. An elder of then later became the wife of the sect leader. However, the old man's son became a cripple with both legs cut off. The two old men were already old, and they both died of anger because of this. At the end of the story, Zi Shanho was gnashing his teeth, and tears flashed in his eyes. However, many years had passed, and he was no longer the hot-blooded and impulsive young man. Although the hatred was buried deep in his heart, it was not so strong on the surface. In the end, no tears fell, and the tears in his eyes quickly disappeared. However, Yixing could feel the hatred in Zi Shanho's heart. At this point in the story, Yixing was naturally sure that the old man's son was his master, Zi Shanho. Even though Yixing was an outsider, he was still infuriated by such an outcome. Yixing said, she sneakily attacked her fellow disciples, tried to kill her brother, and angered her parents to death. She committed such crimes. Shouldn't the sect punish her? Zi Shanho's eyes twitched, and he said, after coming out of the Qingyun ancient land, she performed excellently in the 10 sects competition and won honor for the Falling Star sect. As for me, my legs were crippled, and I didn't even have the qualifications to participate in the 10 sects competition. For a crippled person, the sect naturally valued a genius more. Moreover, she accused me of betraying the sect and giving the great opportunity to become an immortal in the immortal realm to an outsider. After she got the opportunity, she kept one for herself and gave the other to the sect, so that the sect could have one more immortal in the Star Gang realm. In addition, with Lu Tianyuan's support, all the elders in the sect stood on her side. If it weren't for Ancestor Lin, I would have been executed as a traitor more than 10 years ago. When Yixing heard this, he only felt a stifling feeling in his heart. Such a slut deserved to die. Yixing asked, "Who is Ancestor Lin?" Xianxia said, "Ancestor Lin Shuyuan, more than 100 years ago, the Falling Star Kingdom was occupied by the Dongfu nation. It was Ancestor Lin who reorganized the Falling Star sect and recovered the territory of the Falling Star Kingdom. She is the only 3 immortal in the Falling Star sect." Then Yixing hesitated for a moment. "What's her name?" Xianxia naturally knew who Yixing was asking about. With a serious expression, he said word by word, Tian, Shu. Xianxia shook his head, "No. If you have the opportunity to get a spiritual medicine to regrow limbs in the future, get one for me. I want to kill this bitch with my own hands." Yixing nodded vigorously, "Yes." Xianxia said, "You don't have to come here tomorrow. It's the day of the Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment. Orange lives can directly become an outer disciple. Red lives need to go through a test. You have to get first place in the test, and the reward will let your cultivation break through to the 9th rank of the martial path." Brothers, thank you for your support. In just half a day, there were more than 100 votes, which gave me hope. Thank you. Today's explosion will continue. From today's votes, the brothers still have the goods in their hands. Please continue to support. Thank you. Chapter 150. The Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment was a grand event held once every 3 years. Martial Saint Heavenly Fate Realm geniuses did not need to take the test and directly became outer disciples. As for ordinary Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators, even if they were 9-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators, they had to go through the test. Only the elites could become outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. To the secular world, 7-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators were geniuses, while 8-star and 9-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators were geniuses among geniuses. However, to the sects, 1-star or 9-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators were no different. They were all mortals with a difficult life. 7th layer Martial Master, 8th layer Martial Master, and 9th layer Martial Master were all titles for the secular world cultivators. In terms of martial Dao, they were only at the 7th, 8th, and 9th layer of the Star Tempering realm. They were all mortals who had not entered the sect yet. Only by gathering star rings and forming a star vortex and becoming a star marquis, or martial saint, could one be considered to have stepped into the martial Dao and become a star cultivator. If one did not become a martial saint, they were mortals, ants in the eyes of the sects. If mortals wanted to borrow the power of the sects to become a martial saint, they naturally had to go through a test. Because there were too many mortals, the resources of the sects were limited. They could only provide opportunities for a few elites. Early the next morning, Xianxia rode the Purple Flame Eagle and Black Feather Eagle to the Purple Mountain Institute to take the top 10 from the previous assessment to the Falling Star sect's disciple selection. The Black Feather Eagle was Watanabe Zhan's mount, the giant black eagle. Yixing learned its name from Xianxia. Yixing remembered that he and Wei Qingxian were sent out from the depths of the Green Cloud Mountain range by a red-clothed female martial saint. The giant black eagle they rode was also a black feather eagle. There were many black feather eagles, which were equivalent to martial saints. They were the most common flying mounts of martial saints. As for Xianxia's Purple Flame Eagle, although it was also a martial saint, it was much stronger than the Black Feather Eagle. It was the king of the Black Feather Eagles, equivalent to a high-rank martial saint. Wei Qingxian was not there, so naturally, someone else came up. These people were not martial saint Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators, not even 9-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators. They had to pass the test to have a chance of becoming a disciple of the Falling Star sect. As for geniuses of the martial saint heavenly mandate like Wang Feng, there was no need for him to pass the test. He had already been taken in as a disciple of the Falling Star sect several days in advance. The 10 students of the Purple Mountain Academy rode on the Purple Flame Eagle and the Black Feather Eagle respectively. Under the leadership of Xianxia, they headed towards the Falling Star sect. The Falling Star sect was located in the Falling Star Mountains to the north of the Jinghua County. The Jinghua County was located in the center of the Luoxing Kingdom, while the Zishan County was located at the border. The distance between the two counties was about 5,000 to 6,000 miles. If one were to use a beast carriage, it would take at least 8 to 10 days to arrive. However, riding on the Purple Flame Eagle and Black Feather Eagle was extremely fast. It only took them half a day to arrive. The Falling Star Kingdom had a vast territory with a radius of more than 10,000 miles. There were a total of 105 counties, and each county had 10 places to participate in the Falling Star sect's disciple selection. There were a total of 1,050 people. However, the Falling Star sect only recruited a limited number of disciples each time. There were only 300 people, and around 70% of them would be eliminated. The elimination rate was very high. Most of the students from Xian County had already arrived in Zishan Prefecture. Most of the students from the other counties had already arrived. Outside Thane, a huge square, there were more than 100 black feather eagles and blue wind eagles standing there. On the back of each black feather eagle sat a marquis. Yi Xing and the others were not the last to arrive. There were still a few students from the other counties who had not arrived. They had to wait a little longer. Xianxia had recently killed 3 martial saints of the East Fu country and destroyed 200,000 soldiers. He was in the limelight. As soon as he appeared, most of the marquises were very polite to him and took the initiative to congratulate him. However, not all of the marquises were happy with Xianxia. Xianxia, you've been very impressive recently. Not far away, a voice that was neither feminine nor masculine was heard. It was very ear-piercing among the congratulatory voices. Yi Xing heard the voice and looked over. The person who spoke was an old man in his 50s. He was also sitting on a purple flame eagle. He was a peak martial saint and his cultivation was not weaker than Xianxia's. Just as Yi Xing was guessing the other party's identity, Xianxia said, "Xianxia, no matter how impressive I am, I can't be more impressive than you. 3 beginner martial saints from the Ziyang Academy dare to be arrogant in my Purple Mountain Academy. My prestige is nothing." His words were also full of sarcasm. Yi Xing frowned. So this old man was the dean of the Ziyang College. Yi Xing looked at the cultivation of the students behind Marquis Ziyang. Out of the 10 of them, 5 of them were at the 9th level of the Star Tempering Realm, while the other 5 were at the peak of the 8th level. As expected of one of the top 3 academies. In terms of cultivation, the 10 of them were much stronger than the 10 of them. Among the 10 students of the Purple Mountain Academy, only he and Renxiuwu were peak level 8 Star Tempering Realm while the rest were early or late level 8 Star Tempering Realm. In terms of cultivation, even the weakest of them was comparable to the strongest in the Purple Mountain Academy. Moreover, this was because Martial Saint Tianming was directly accepted as a disciple of the Falling Star sect. Otherwise, the other party would definitely have more level 9 Star Tempering Realm martial artists. When Yi Xing sized up the 10 students of the Ziyang Academy, he realized that their gazes were locked on him. They were very sharp and unfriendly, especially the 2 level 9 martial artists, who revealed murderous intent. This made Yi Xing squint his eyes. It seemed that these students of the Ziyang Academy would not let him off easily. He had to be careful in the sects test. Xianxia was more than 10 years older than Xianxia. When he was a disciple of the Xianxia had not yet entered the sect. In his eyes, Xianxia was just a baby. Even though Xianxia was nearing 40 years old and was a marquis of a region, and had recently become famous for killing the martial saint of the Dongfu country, Xianxia was still prejudiced against Xianxia for killing the 3 blue wind eagles of the Ziyang Academy and causing the 3 martial saints of the Ziyang Academy to return in a sorry state. Xianxia sneered, I'll let you be arrogant now. When the selection is over, let's see if you still have the face to be arrogant when no one from the Purple Mountain County gets selected. Xianxia retaliated, even if my Purple Mountain County gets 1, it's still better than your Purple Sun County getting 10. No matter how many mediocre people there are, they're still mediocre. Xianxia snorted angrily and said to the students behind him, remember this. If a student from the Purple Mountain County gets selected this time, I'll hold you responsible. Yixing squinted his eyes and made up his mind. This time, he must let Ziyang County eat a big duck egg. Xianxia, he's just a junior. Why are you bickering with him? It's just a moment of glory. He's just a cripple. How long can he be arrogant? At this moment, another ear-piercing voice was heard. It was also a peak martial saint, sitting on a purple flame eagle, who came to Xianxia's side. This person was obviously an outstanding marquis. He took out a wine jug and threw it to Xianxia, saying, come, have a taste of my Guantian County's celestial fruit wine to relieve your anger. Jinghua County, Ziyang County, and Guantian County were the 3 largest counties in the Luoxing country. The middle schools of the counties were also the 3 strongest schools. The marquises of these 3 counties could only be conferred by peak martial saints. Just like the invincible marquis of the Dongfu country, they were not conferred by ordinary people. These 3 marquises had always been superior and did not put the other marquises in their eyes. Xianxia had been in the limelight recently and had completely overshadowed all the other marquises. Guantian was very dissatisfied with this. He often told people that Xianxia was able to kill the invincible marquis of the Dongfu country only with the help of the bow and arrow. This was because the bow in Xianxia's hand was an upper-grade spiritual weapon. Normally, only perfected persons would have upper-grade spiritual weapons. Without the upper-grade spiritual bow, Xianxia would not be a match for the invincible marquis of the Dongfu country. There were very few people who could kill the invincible marquis in the Luoxing country, but Guantian was one of them. Guantian's words seemed to be high and mighty, and he even reprimanded Xianxia as a villain. However, many people could see who was the villain. However, no one dared to say it out loud. As one of the 3 strongest marquises in the Luoxing country, ordinary marquises could not be compared to him. After Marquis Guantian mocked Xianxia, he didn't stop. He continued to speak to the students of Guantian Academy behind him. All of you, remember this. When we enter the 100 Illusions Matrix, don't let the students of trash schools fish in troubled waters. The Falling Star sect needs elites, and trash should be eliminated. Understand? Yes, Mark. We will not let any trash students pass. The students of Guantian Academy said in unison. Guantian County. Yixing's gaze swept over the students behind Guantian. You guys also have to eat big duck eggs? Guantian and Ziyang Marquis quickly began to talk and laugh. Their words always had a high and mighty attitude as they constantly belittled other marquises. Naturally, there was no lack of open and veiled ridicule towards Xianxia. The other party did not openly attack Xianxia, and Xianxia was too lazy to pay attention to them. He only glanced at Yixing. Yixing nodded. Of course, he understood Xianxia's gaze. Even without Xianxia's instructions, he had already made his decision. He would let Ziyang County and Guantian County eat big duck eggs. With the passage of time, the people from the other remote counties had arrived. The 1,050 juniors had all gathered in the square. Each of them had received a card from the sect. The outer sect elder Huiyang presided over the selection of disciples. He stood on the high platform at the back of the square and said loudly, "Juniors, the cards you just received are the 100 Illusions formation cards. Only those with the formation cards can enter the 100 Illusions formation. If anyone loses the card in the 100 Illusions formation, they will be immediately sent out of the 100 Illusions formation, which means they will be eliminated." Everyone kept the formation cards close to their bodies. There are a total of 1,050 of you, but our sect will only accept 300 disciples. 750 of you will be eliminated. When the number of people eliminated from the 100 Illusions formation reaches 750, the first round of selection will end. The remaining 300 people in the 100 Illusions formation will become our sect's new disciples. Furthermore, the 10 people who obtain the most formation tokens will become the top 10 of this selection and receive generous rewards. The second round of selection will be the competition between the top 10. The top 5, top 3, and first place will be determined. Different rankings will have different rewards. The first place will have the most generous reward. Everyone's eyes lit up. Most people wanted to rush into the top 10. A small number of experts wanted to fight for first place, requesting monthly votes. There will be more updates tonight. Chapter 151. If one only wanted to be accepted as a disciple of then the best way after entering the 100 Illusions formation was to find a place to hide. As long as he did not lose his formation card, he could continue to stay in the 100 Illusion array until the number of people eliminated reached 750. Then he would naturally become one of the 300 disciples accepted by the Falling Star sect. However, if one wanted to fight for the top 10 or even the top 5, top 3, or first place, then it was completely impossible to hide after entering the 100 Illusions formation. The only way was to take the initiative to attack and seize the formation plates of others. In short, if one wanted to be accepted as a disciple, all one had to do was to protect one's array card. If one wanted to enter the top 10, one had to snatch enough array cards. One had to focus on defense, while the other had to focus on attacking. Although the Purple Mountain Academy didn't have any students in the 9th level of the Star Tempering Realm, there were still many in the other academies. In fact, the Purple Mountain County didn't lack 9-star Destiny Realm juniors. Wang Feng wasn't the only one in the Martial Saint Destiny Realm. However, because Zishan Academy's disciples who entered the Falling Star sect always suffered setbacks and were assigned to the most unpromising units to do the heaviest work, after 2 rounds of the Falling Star sect's disciple selection, some of the big clans in Zishan County, if they had a 9-star fate or even a Martial Saint fate descendant, would be sent to a relative's family in another county at a very young age to avoid being branded as a member of Zishan County. It was precisely because of the loss of talent that the Purple Mountain Academy's recent 2 batches of students did not have high aptitudes. Compared to other academies, they were a grade lower. The reason why Wang Feng stayed in the Zishan County was because the Wang family did not know the relationship between Zishan Ho and the Starfall sect. They wanted to curry favor with Wang Ho, thinking that by not entering the Zishan Academy and becoming Zishan Ho's disciple, they would be able to break the curse of the Zishan Academy's students entering the Starfall sect. Thus, when the Wang clan found out that Wang Feng's Heaven's Mandate might surpass 9 stars, they recommended him to Zishan Ho and requested him to take him in as a disciple. Zishan Ho tested that Wang Feng's Heaven's Mandate was a 5-star orange fate and found that Wang Feng's talent was indeed extraordinary. He naturally accepted Wang Feng as his personal disciple and did his best to nurture Wang Feng. He even taught Wang Feng the Azure Cloud Eyes. However, Wang Feng truly wasn't suited to learn eye techniques, so Zishan Ho gave up. Afterwards, Zishan Ho took in Wang Feng as his adopted son. It was Wang Feng who had requested this from Zishan Ho under the wishes of his family elders. Zishan Ho had no children, and at that time, he only had Wang Feng as his personal disciple. Wang Feng was willing to acknowledge him as his father. This naturally made Zishan Ho very happy, and so he took Wang Feng in as his adopted son. As a result, Wang Feng, a genius with the Martial Saint's mandate, chose to stay in the Zishan County. Therefore, although the Zishan Academy didn't have any 9-star Destiny students or 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students, it couldn't be compared to the other academies. Like the Zishan Academy, there weren't many academies that didn't have any 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students. Most of them had at least 1, 2, or even 3. As for the top 3 academies, each of them had more than 5. All in all, among the 1,050 students, there were more than 200 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students. Most of the others were at the peak of the 8th level or late stage of the 8th level. Those below late stage of the 8th level were extremely rare. Among the 200 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students, there were more than 30 late-stage 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students. Even late-stage 9th-level star-tempering realm martial artists didn't have a high chance of getting into the top 10. This showed how difficult it was. Basically, only late-stage 9th-level star-tempering realm martial artists had the confidence to get into the top 10. Those below late-stage 9th-level star-tempering realm martial artists were few and far between. Among the 8th-level star-tempering realm martial artists, Yixing was the only one who had the confidence. The 100 illusion formation has a radius of 100 miles. Intentional killing is strictly prohibited in the formation. If you lose, hand over the formation token and you'll be teleported out immediately. Go in. Whoever wants to get into the top 10, try your best to grab as many formation tokens as possible. The more formation tokens you have, the higher your chance of getting into the top 10. Gongyang Xian didn't beat around the bush. He quickly finished his speech and pointed behind him. There was a swirling ripple behind him. It was obviously the entrance to the 100 illusion formation. Following Gongyang Xian's gesture, all the students rushed to the high platform. They passed through the swirling ripple and disappeared into the 100 illusion formation. The 100 illusion formation had a radius of 100 miles. There were various terrains such as mountains, rivers, plains, and so on. The students who entered the formation were assigned to different areas. Yixing passed through the ripple vortex and appeared in the 100 illusion formation in an instant. He was at the edge of the plains. On his right was a mountainous area. On his left, there were 3 other students a few hundred meters away in different directions. One of the students immediately ran towards the mountainous area. If one wanted to hide, the mountainous area was clearly a good place. On the plains, others would be able to discover one from a distance. As for the other 2 students, they seemed to be from the same school. They quickly gathered together and knelt before Yixing. These 2 people were at the peak of the 8th-level star-tempering realm. Yixing was also at the peak of the 8th-level star-tempering realm, but he was alone. The 2 of them stopped 10 meters away from Yixing. One of them said, "Hand over the formation token and you can safely leave the 100 illusion formation." At the peak of the 8th-level star-tempering realm, unless one was a monstrous genius like Yixing, there was no hope of getting into the top 10. Therefore, as long as a student at the peak of the 8th-level star-tempering realm held onto their formation token and didn't get eliminated, they would be able to last until the end and win. Yixing really didn't know what these 2 people were thinking. They snatched his formation token, but they couldn't get into the top 10. There must be something wrong with their heads. Although he thought that there was something wrong with their heads, Yixing was still very happy about their arrival. He needed a large number of formation tokens to have any hope of getting into the top 10. In his eyes, these 2 people were obviously here to give him their formation tokens. Yixing touched his chin and said in the same tone, "Hand over the formation token and you can safely leave the 100 illusion formation." "You're courting death. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." The 2 of them shouted angrily at the same time. Without saying anything else, they instantly attacked. One of them jumped up and pounced on Yixing's chest. Both of his palms clapped together. The inner strength in his palms instantly penetrated through his body and turned into 2 palm prints, slapping towards Yixing. One of them shoveled on the ground and attacked Yixing's lower body. His right leg flashed with inner strength and dug out a 10-meter-long trench on the ground. These 2 people obviously worked together often. One on top and one on bottom, attacking at the same time. Martial artists of the same realm basically couldn't survive a single move from them. However, Yixing wasn't an ordinary peak level 8 martial artist. He moved his feet and used the Big Dipper step. The shoveling leg attacking Yixing's lower body suddenly missed. Yixing's foot stepped down, accurately stepping on the ankle of the shoveling leg. As for the 2 palm prints, Yixing didn't even use his inner strength. He just used his pure physical strength to casually slap them into pieces. Then, in just an instant, Yixing's 2 consecutive palms collided with the opponent's 2 palms. However, the sound was heard almost at the same time. 2 screams sounded at the same time. The ankle that was stepped on was instantly dislocated. Moreover, Yixing was stepping on it, making it impossible for it to move. As for the student that collided with Yixing's 2 palms, He was instantly sent flying. His internal organs seemed to be in turmoil. His face was swollen red, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. He was about to vomit blood. Yixing stepped on the student under his foot and glanced at the student that was thrown more than 10 meters away. He said, "Are you going to take the initiative to hand over your array cards now? Or are you going to wait until I beat you until you can't take it anymore?" Both of their eyes were filled with fear. Usually, when the two of them teamed up, they could deal with martial artists of the same realm in one move. However, today both of them were defeated by Yixing, a martial artist of the same realm, in one move. This was an outcome that they never expected. Even some level 9 star tempering realm martial artists might not be able to achieve such a powerful strength. How would the two of them dare to fight with Yixing? They quickly handed over their array cards. With a flash of light, the two of them were sent out of the 100 illusion formation. Yixing now had 3 array cards. In the 100 illusion formation, there were a total of 1,050 students who participated in the selection. Among them, 750 were eliminated. For every person that was eliminated, the remaining students in the 100 illusion formation would have 1 more array card. In other words, compared to the 300 students who were not eliminated, there would be 750 more array cards. If one wanted to enter the top 10, one would have to obtain at least 1/10 of the extra 750 array cards, which was 75 array cards. Together with the 1 card that one already had, it would be 76 array cards. As long as one could obtain 76 array cards, it would mean that one would be able to enter the top 10. Yixing put away the 2 formation cards and looked into the distance. His vision allowed him to see 10 miles away. This was just the ability of his super brain. There were too many people in the 100 illusions formation, so Yixing did not plan to use his green eyes. Other than those who were hiding in his field of vision, Yixing knew every student's position as long as they were within his field of vision. Yixing immediately chose the direction with the most people. The reward for the first place was enough for him to break through to the 9th stage of the star tempering realm. He was determined to get it. To get the first place, one had to enter the top 10. Therefore, Yixing had to obtain more array cards. He had to obtain at least 76 array cards. Although 75, 73, or even 70 array cards were enough for him to enter the top 10, Yixing had to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Therefore, they could only eliminate some people and snatch the array formation tokens from their hands. The direction Yixing chose wasn't based on the cultivation level of the other party, but on the number of people. Only by having a large number of people would he be able to obtain enough array formation cards. In Yixing's opinion, it didn't make much of a difference whether the other party was in the 8th or 9th stage of the star tempering realm. Yixing had only walked a few hundred meters when he was surrounded again. This time, it was a 9th stage beginner and 3 8th stage peak cultivators. Although Yixing did not see any students from the Purple Mountain Academy nearby, not all students were like him and did not know anyone nearby. The 4 of them were from the same academy. Fortunately, they were not too far away from each other after entering the 100 illusion formation. They quickly gathered together. There was strength in numbers. The 4 of them were obviously stronger when they joined forces to snatch other people's array cards. Chapter 152. Yixing crossed his arms in front of his chest, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, carrying a thought-provoking smile. Before the other party could speak, Yixing had already looked at the 4 of them with interest and said, "The 4 of you, are you here to give me the array token?" The 4 of them were stunned. Of the 4 of them, 1 was at the early stage of the 9th level, 3 were at the peak of the 8th level, and Yixing was only 1 person at the peak of the 8th level, yet he dared to say such a thing? Was there something wrong with his head? This thought flashed through the 4 of their minds. The early stage 9th level student said, "Idiot, hand over the array token and get out of the 100 illusions array, or I'll teach you a lesson." Yixing stretched his right arm forward, his index finger pointing at the early stage 9th level student and hooking it a few times. "Come, let me see how you'll teach me a lesson." Being looked down upon, the early stage 9th level student was furious, his breathing quickened, and his face turned ashen. "This brat is too arrogant." Senior Brother Fan Jian, break his dog legs. Senior Brother Fan Jian, smash his mouth. The 3 peak 8th level students were also furious and shouted angrily at the same time. Fan Jian was very angry. His eyes revealed a dangerous light and walked towards Yixing. Brat, you've angered me. Are you going to support your stinky mouth, or do you want me to support your stinky mouth? 1 is enough, I'll do it at least 10. Yixing's expression was normal. Are you saying that only you can snatch my array token but I can't snatch yours? I only said what you wanted to say to me in advance. Do you have to be so angry? Fan Jian continued to move forward, getting closer and closer to Yixing, his aura threatening. Cut the crap, you don't have much time to choose. Yixing cracked a smile. What seemed like an innocent smile was actually a dangerous one. Brother Fan Jian, right? Don't be so ruthless with your words. I originally only wanted your formation tablets. If you continue to act like this, we won't be able to play happily anymore. Perhaps what you say will be the final consequence that you will have to bear. Noisy! Fan Jian snorted coldly, and his palm suddenly emitted a bright light. That was the condensation of a dense inner strength, and its power was terrifying. Although it was not released, this palm was enough to split gold and stone. Fan Jian snorted coldly and rushed towards Yixing. His palm slapped towards Yixing's face. But before it even touched Yixing's face, an explosive sound could be heard as the palm moved. It was as if the air had been blown apart. It was clear how powerful the palm was. Even an 8-dan pinnacle Xianxia realm cultivator would not be able to withstand the might of this palm strike. They would suffer severe injuries, possibly even fatal injuries. Fan Jian's ruthless attack caused Yixing's eyes to flicker coldly. In the face of Fan Jian's palm strike, Yixing did not dodge. Instead, he stretched out his left hand and grabbed the other party's palm. Yixing's palm was covered in a layer of golden light. There was no fluctuation of inner strength. Supreme-grade body refining technique, invincible golden body. The greater mastery of the invincible golden body was enough to defeat most of the 9-dan star tempering realm cultivators. Not to mention the early stage, he could even defeat the mid-stage. When the 2 palms collided, an explosive sound could be heard. The inner strength in Fan Jian's palm was dispersed and dimmed. However, the golden luster on Yixing's palm was still there. His strength was like a vice, and he caught Fan Jian's palm in an instant. At the same time, his other hand suddenly clenched into a palm and slapped towards Fan Jian's face. It was also covered in a golden luster. Fan Jian's hand was caught by Yixing. Even if he used all his strength, he could not pull his hand out. There was no way for him to dodge this palm strike. He could not even block it. But the golden luster of the palm slapped Fan Jian's face. Fan Jian's face turned 90 degrees, and a bloody palm print appeared on his face. Broken teeth and blood spurted out. Fan Jian's eyes rolled back. He was almost knocked out by Yixing's slap. In the next instant, Yixing's hand shot out like lightning and grabbed the array formation token from the other party's body. Without the array card, Fan Jian was sent out of the 100 illusion formation in a flash of light. He was eliminated. The other 3 students who were at the pinnacle of the 8-dan star tempering realm were stunned. They did not expect Fan Jian, who was at the early stage of the 9-dan star tempering realm, to be as weak as a 3-year-old. Yixing put away Fan Jian's array card and looked at the other 3 students. What about the rest of you? Run! The 3 of them shouted at the same time. They turned around and ran, using their lightness skill to the maximum. Upper-grade lightness skill, traceless flying snow. Yixing moved and chased after them. His speed was more than twice as fast as the 3 of them. There were more than 2,000 martial arts in the Purple Mountain Academy library. Yixing had mastered them all. Even his upper-grade martial arts had reached the transformative realm. The traceless flying snow of the transformative realm was faster than the flying swan technique of the transformative realm. How fast was that? It was obvious that none of the 3 martial artists at the pinnacle of the 8-dan star tempering realm could escape. They did not even run far before they were caught by Yixing. The 3 of them panicked. They thought that Yixing would give them a slap each like Fan Jian. They hurriedly threw out their array cards and were sent out of the 100 illusion formation with bitter faces. Yi Xing kept the 3 array cards. He now had 7 cards in his hand. He was still far from the 76 array cards. He had to snatch more. Out of the 1,050 students who entered the 100 illusion formation, 750 of them would definitely be eliminated. Even if Yi Xing did not snatch the cards, there would still be 750 people who would be eliminated. It was just that the array cards would be snatched by others and the top 10 would be taken by others. Since that was the case, Yi Xing would definitely snatch the cards. Since they were going to be eliminated, it did not matter who got the cards. Moreover, if he got the cards, he would be able to get more array cards. Fan Jian and the other 3 had their array cards snatched away by Yi Xing. This was seen by many students in the distance. Now, these students regarded Yi Xing as a malefic star. They ran far away or hid. However, to Yi Xing, whose eyesight was far better than others, it was not easy to escape Yi Xing's pursuit. He used traceless flying snow and flew towards the direction where there were more people. Outside the 100 illusion formation, there were students being eliminated one after another. The lower the cultivation, the earlier they were eliminated. This was because once they entered the 100 illusion formation, there would be students with higher cultivation everywhere. It was normal for their array cards to be snatched away. Many students with lower cultivation were from Zishan Academy. Therefore, not long after the first round of selection began, there were already a few students from Zishan Academy who were eliminated. Marky Ziyang, look, a trash academy is a trash academy. It hasn't been long since the selection began, and Zishan Academy has already eliminated 6 people. Among the eliminated students, 1/10 of them are from Zishan Academy. Ha! Marquis Guantian laughed beside Marquis Ziyang. Marquis Ziyang was also full of smiles. There were almost 100 students eliminated, but Zishan Academy and Guantian Academy had not eliminated a single one. Both of them were very superior. Marquis Ziyang chuckled. This is just the beginning. It won't be long before Zishan Academy is completely eliminated. Not a single one will be left, hee. Both of their voices were very loud. The marquises nearby could hear them clearly. They could not help but look at Marquis Zishan's reaction. Marquis Zishan sat on the back of the purple flame eagle. The corner of his mouth was slightly raised, carrying a thought-provoking smile. No one could tell what he was thinking. About an hour had passed in the 100 illusions formation, and the number of formation cards in Yi Xing's hand had already reached 27. Basically, those who were targeted by him could not escape his tracking. Therefore, he should have obtained more formation cards and was at the front. If he maintained this speed, it would not be a problem for him to be in the top 10. Yi Xing's eyes constantly scanned the surroundings, looking for traces of other students. Suddenly, Yi Xing's expression changed. On a mountain peak a few miles away from him, 5 students suddenly walked out from the back of the mountain. There were 3 boys and 2 girls. A girl in the middle of the 9th level, a boy in the early 9th level, and 3 at the peak of the 8th level. With such a team configuration, Yi Xing could definitely defeat them all. What surprised him was not the strength of these 5 people, but the fact that there was an acquaintance among them. Chu Jingnan, whom he met when he obtained the Silver Star Fruit, was now at the peak of the 8th level. Since they were acquaintances, Yi Xing naturally could not snatch their formation cards. Moreover, with their team strength, they could definitely last until the end, rank in the top 300, and become disciples of the Falling Star sect. When Yi Xing saw Chu Jingnan and the other 4, they also saw him. However, Chu Jingnan and the other 4 did not have Yi Xing's eyesight. They only saw Yi Xing from afar, but did not see his appearance clearly. Seeing a lone student, Chu Jingnan and the other 4 naturally rushed over. Although Yi Xing did not intend to snatch their formation cards, he did not avoid them either. Hi, brother Yi Xing. When Chu Jingnan saw Yi Xing's appearance clearly, his expression immediately turned to joy. Obviously, he did not expect to see an acquaintance. Yi Xing also waved at Chu Jingnan. Brother Chu, how have you been? Chu Jingnan soon arrived in front of Yi Xing. Chu Jingnan introduced, Cousin, Senior Brother Yuan Bai, this is Brother Yi Xing, whom I told you about. He has not become a martial Dao master yet, but he killed Xianxia Temple, who was at the peak of the 8th level of the Ziyang College. The other 4 people all had shocked expressions on their faces. The middle stage 9th heaven female in the lead was obviously the leader of the 5 people. She walked out and sized Yixing up. Yixing remembered that Chu Jingnan had said that his cousin, Chu Jingyue, could defeat someone at the peak of the 7th level when she was at the early stage of the 7th level. The middle stage 9th level girl in front of him should be Chu Jingyue. If she was a genius who could fight above her level, then her strength was a little scary. One could not judge her from her appearance. Chu Jingyue sized up Yixing for a while and said, "Your archery skills are very good. I wonder how your strength is?" Yixing also looked at Chu Jingyue carefully. She was wearing a tight black leather suit. She had a slender waist, full buttocks, and big breasts. Her devilish figure was perfectly highlighted, and she looked like an elegant cheetah. Coupled with her angelic face, Chu Jingyue was simply a stunner. Today's monthly votes are miserable. Brothers who have monthly votes, please support one. Chapter 153. Chu Jingyue frowned when she saw that Yixing didn't reply, but his eyes were wandering around her devilish body. Yixing immediately sensed her reaction. He retracted his gaze and said, "Not bad." Chu Jingyue said unhappily, "Jingnan said that you have the strength to fight above your level. I want to see if he's bragging. Yuan Bai, you go and test him. If you can't withstand 3 moves from Yuan Bai, don't blame me for snatching your formation card." The man in the early 9th rank walked up. Yuan Bai rubbed his fists and turned to look at Chu Jingnan at the same time. Chu Jingnan winked at Yixing. "Yixing, can you do it?" Although Yixing could fight above his level when he was in the 6th rank of the martial path, martial artists were limited in many ways. It didn't mean that one could fight above his level in the early stages and always be able to do so in the later stages. Yixing nodded. "No problem." Yuan Bai nodded at Yixing with a smile and said, "I'll make my move." As he spoke, Yuan Bai took a step forward and waved his right arm. He punched at Yixing like a flash of lightning. In an instant, Yuan Bai's entire arm was suffused with a red luster. The fist force rushed out and turned into a fire pattern that rushed forward in an instant. The void was burning and crackling, and the temperature suddenly rose. This internal force of the fire attribute was much stronger than ordinary internal force. Yuan Bai's strength was at the peak of the early 9th rank. In the face of his opponent's fire pattern fist force, Yixing moved his feet and his figure disappeared in an instant. Upper-level body movement technique, 4 directional steps. The 4 directional steps of the transformative stage allowed Yixing's speed to be unparalleled in a certain space. The 7-star steps of the transformative stage might not be able to dodge the attack of the fire pattern fist force, but the 4 directional steps of the transformative stage could easily dodge it. Seeing that Yixing had actually dodged his punch, Yuan Bai was surprised. Then, like a flash of lightning, he used his body movement technique and rushed toward Yixing, fire pattern consecutive punch. In the blink of an eye, Yuan Bai's fists moved at the same time, and in the blink of an eye, he threw out a dozen punches. However, Yixing's 4 directional steps was indeed extremely fast. His figure flashed, and the dozens of fist marks did not even touch the corner of his clothes. Fan ripple. Yuan Bai was a little annoyed that he couldn't even touch Yixing after 2 consecutive moves. He let out a loud shout and threw out 2 punches. A powerful fire attribute inner strength surged out in an instant, forming a fan-shaped area that rushed forward. At this moment, Yixing was about to land on the ground. Once he landed, he would definitely be hit by the fire-patterned fist force. Traceless snowflakes. Yixing's movement technique changed into Qinggong. Both of his legs tapped on the air, and before he even touched the ground, his body was already much higher. The fiery fist energy rushed past his feet. Yixing did a backflip and landed lightly on the ground. He said, "Thank you for letting me win." After 3 moves, Yixing did not confront Yuan Bai head-on. With his Qinggong body movement technique, he easily dodged all of the attacks. This made Yuan Bai a little stunned. With his cultivation level of level 9 star tempering realm, he could not even touch the corner of Yixing's clothes after 3 consecutive moves. Regardless of Yixing's strength, His Qinggong body movement technique shocked Yuan Bai. Obviously, Yi Xing was much stronger than him. Brother Yi is indeed extraordinary. Yuan Bai cupped his hands at Yi Xing. Obviously, he acknowledged the latter's strength and retreated. Chu Jingnan's face was full of smiles. I told you Yi Xing is very strong. Cousin, he was even stronger than you when you were at a higher level. Yi Xing could tell that Chu Jingyue was not as happy as Chu Jingnan. Instead, she was a little displeased. After all, Yi Xing was an earthling. Although he had been in the Star Continent for almost a year, there were still some small differences between him and the locals. Her devilish figure was curvaceous, and it was perfectly outlined by the tight leather jacket. Yi Xing naturally took a few more glances at her. This was very normal on Earth. However, in the Star Continent, it was a little frivolous. Chu Jingyue labeled him as a pervert in her heart. Yi Xing could feel Chu Jingyue's displeasure. He said, I won't disturb you anymore. Goodbye. Wait. Yi Xing was about to leave, but Chu Jingyue stopped him. Just now, you were dodging with your body movement technique and did not fight with Yuan Bai. Who knows if your strength is enough to fight someone at a higher level? Let me test you. Just take one hit from me. Chu Jingyue thought to herself, this kid is so young, but his eyes have already sized me up several times without any scruples. He must be a little pervert. Even if he is Jingnan's friend, I have to punish him. As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Jingyue's figure disappeared in a flash. In an instant, she appeared in front of Yi Xing and slapped him with her palm. Boom! Suddenly, the sound of thunder rang out. It was not thunder in the sky, but the muffled sound of thunder in Chu Jingyue's palm. She had performed an extremely powerful martial art, Thunder Palm. Since she intended to punish Yi Xing, Chu Jingyue naturally did not show too much mercy. Even an early-stage 9th-tier martial artist would not be able to withstand this palm. Chu Jingyue's attack was much faster than Yuan Bai's. Even the four-sided steps of the transformative stage could not avoid it. Yi Xing's body retreated backward. His palm glowed with a golden luster. In an instant, his palm collided with Chu Jingyue's. His body shot backward like an arrow leaving the bow. Chu Jingnan and the others were shocked. They thought that Yi Xing had been sent flying by Chu Jingyue's palm. How severe was his injury if he shot backward at such a fast speed? The next moment, Yi Xing's strange cry came from afar. Ouch! Beauty! Your palm strength is as hot as your figure. While speaking, Yi Xing's body flashed past. In a few ups and downs, he had already run hundreds of meters away. He turned around a mountain and disappeared. Only then did everyone realize that Yi Xing was not injured at all. He had just retreated with the help of Chu Jingyue's palm strength. Chu Jingyue stood in place, her face cold. This little pervert dared to tease her. He was really reckless. However, Yi Xing's speed was too fast. She admitted that she could not catch up with him. She could only think bitterly, the next time I see him, I must teach him a lesson. Behind her, Chu Jingnan looked at his cousin being humiliated. He immediately suppressed a smile from the bottom of his heart. His expression was very strange. His cousin had an angelic face and a devilish figure. She could be said to be a stunner that could move thousands of men. However, she had a violent temper. She was focused on martial arts and had a firm will. She had no romantic feelings at all. She was just a tomboy. After knowing her for a long time, he realized how terrifying she was. Whether it was the boys who wanted to hit on her or the boys who were interested in her, they were all beaten up miserably by her. Yi Xing actually dared to flirt with this tigress. He was simply asking for trouble. Chu Jingnan could imagine that if his cousin met Yi Xing again, he would probably be taught a lesson. Afraid that Chu Jingyue would catch up with him, Yi Xing used traceless flying snow and ran all the way to distance himself from the other party. After running for more than 10 miles, Yi Xing saw that the other party did not catch up with him. Then he stopped at a high mountain. Standing at the top of the mountain, Yi Xing looked into the distance and observed the surroundings. Suddenly, Yi Xing's face lit up with joy. A few miles away, Yi Xing met a team of 8 students from Crown Sky Academy. Among them, 3 were at LV9's Star Tempering Realm. 2 were at the middle stage of LV9, 1 was at the early stage of LV9, and 5 were at the peak of LV8. Yi Xing grinned. In his eyes, the 8 of them turned into formation cards one after another. The 8 of them had at least 8 formation cards on them, but Yi Xing was sure that they had more than 8 formation cards. With the 8 of them together, they were a powerful force. They must have snatched many formation cards in their hands. Yi Xing was delighted. Their formation cards will soon be mine. There are many experts from Crown Sky Academy and Ziyang Academy. They must have snatched a lot of formation cards. If I find them all and drive them out of the 100 illusion formation, it should be enough for the top 10. He had made up his mind. Next, he would clean up the 2 students from Crown Sky Academy and Ziyang Academy. Outside the 100 illusion formation. At this moment, another student from Purple Mountain Academy was sent out. It was Renshuwu. He was at the peak of LV8, but he was also eliminated. In the 100 illusion formation, if a peak LV8 martial artist did not team up with a LV9 martial artist, it was easy for someone to snatch their formation card. Renshuwu did not have the strength to fight against a LV9 martial artist, so it was normal for his formation card to be snatched. Sky Crown Marquis was full of smiles. Until now, no one from Crown Sky Academy had been eliminated. Seeing that another one from the Purple Mountain Academy had been eliminated, Sky Crown Marquis laughed happily. Purple Sun Marquis, look, another one from the Purple Mountain Academy has been eliminated. This is already the 9th one. Just one more and all of them will be eliminated. Marquis Ziyang stroked the beard on his chin. His face was also full of smiles and he was in a good mood. Trash academies, it is certain that they will all be eliminated. Not long after, that little brat will also be eliminated. Sky Crown Marquis nodded and glanced at Purple Sun Marquis. Purple Sun Marquis, how long do you think it will take for the last one from Purple Mountain Academy to be eliminated? Not far away, Purple Sun Marquis' expression was normal. As long as Yi Xing was not eliminated, the elimination of others would not affect his state of mind. In his opinion, Purple Mountain Academy students would be discouraged if they entered the Falling Star sect. If they did not have potential, it would be difficult for them to make a name for themselves in the sect. His hope was only on Yi Xing. In his eyes, only Yi Xing could create miracles. Purple Sun Marquis also glanced at Purple Sun Marquis and said, "At most 15 minutes." Marquis Guantian laughed. Marquis Ziyang, you think too highly of those trash students. How could they even need a quarter of an hour? I think at most a quarter of an hour, and those trash students will all be eliminated. Just as Sky Crown Marquis finished speaking, suddenly, a light flashed outside the 100 illusion formation. Another person was eliminated. Sky Crown Marquis' laughter stopped and the smile on his face froze. Immediately, the light outside the 100 illusion formation flashed continuously, and people were eliminated one after another. Sky Crown Marquis' expression became more and more unsightly. The students who were continuously eliminated were all students of Sky Crown Academy. Not only were the students at the peak of the 8th rank eliminated, but even those at the beginning and middle of the 9th rank were eliminated. In less than 10 breaths of time, a total of 8 people from Sky Crown Academy had been eliminated. All the Marquis' gazes turned towards Sky Crown Marquis. Sky Crown Marquis' face burned, and he roared at the 8 people. You good-for-nothings, how could you be eliminated? Today, I was called an idiot by the author who pushed my new book to the top of the monthly votes. The Arrow God was originally the top of the monthly votes, but he pushed it up and showed off everywhere. He didn't even allow me to refute and called me an idiot. He even said that he wanted to show off, so what could I do? Alright, I was really angry today. I delayed my writing, so I can't add more chapters. I can only update twice and apologize to my brothers. Tomorrow, I will adjust my state of mind and continue to explode. Furthermore, I will make a vow to my brothers that I will increase my explosiveness in the second half of the month. Calling me an idiot. Yes, I am stupid. I am so stupid that I only know how to ask my brothers for votes, but I don't know how to spend money to buy votes. However, I will continue to be stupid. I have 3,000 subscribed brothers. If I go all out, I will definitely kill him and fight for first place. Brothers, if you have monthly votes, please vote. From tomorrow onwards, watch my performance. If I can't win, then I have lived in vain. Chapter 154. In Sky Crown Academy, the 8 students were stunned by Sky Crown Marquis's roar. Their expressions were both angry and ashamed. The mid-9th level student said submissively, It's Zishan Academy's Yixing. He stole our array card. Zishan Academy? Yixing? Everyone was stunned. It seemed that among the students of Zishan Academy, the highest cultivation was only at the peak of the 8th level. And Crown Sky Academy not only had 8 people, but 3 of them were 9th level martial artists. Furthermore, 2 of them were in the middle stage of the 9th level. With 8 people together, how could a peak 8th level martial artist snatch away all the array tokens? This was simply too unbelievable. What did you say? Sky Crown Marquis thought that he had misheard and asked again in disbelief. He had just mocked Zishan Academy for being a trash academy and that all the students would be eliminated. Just as he finished speaking, his Sky Crown Academy eliminated 8 people in one go. Furthermore, the 8 people who were eliminated were actually Yixing from Zishan Academy. If Zishan Academy was a trash academy, didn't that mean that Sky Crown Academy was even worse than trash academies? The mid-9th level student saw Sky Crown Marquis's anger and said fearfully, It's Yixing from Zishan Academy. Enough. This time, Sky Crown Marquis heard it clearly. Without waiting for the student to finish, he shouted angrily, A bunch of trash, scram. There was a burst of laughter from the side. Although the nobles present were not as high as Sky Crown Marquis and would not go against him, they still dared to laugh when faced with such a ridiculous situation. Sky Crown Marquis felt a burning sensation on his face, and his face turned as black as charcoal. Beside him, Purple Sun Marquis also had an ashen face. Yixing's strength was actually so strong. If the students of Sky Crown Academy were to suffer, how could his Purple Sun Academy be spared? Sky Crown Marquis looked at Sky Crown Marquis and so did Sky Crown Marquis. The 2 powerful nobles looked at each other, their eyes full of seriousness. For Yixing to be able to eliminate 8 people, his strength must have at least reached the level of a late-stage 9th level martial artist. Now, the 2 nobles could only hope that Yixing would quickly be eliminated by the students of the 2 academies who were at the peak of the 9th level. Otherwise, if the other students encountered him, it would definitely be a disaster. Inside the 100 illusion formation. Only 19 array formation cards. Although they have the advantage in numbers, they didn't manage to get that many. Yixing said unhappily as he tidied up the array formation cards that he had snatched from the 8 people. Even though he was alone, he had 27 array formation cards on him, and he had managed to snatch 26 of them. On the other hand, there were 8 of them, and they had only managed to snatch 11 of the 19 array formation cards. Compared to Yixing, their efficiency was much lower. 27 cards. Including these 19 cards, I have 46 cards. That's not a small number. There are still many students in the 2 academies. It should be enough if I snatch all of their cards. Yixing put away the 46 formation cards and looked into the distance, searching for the students of Crown Sky Academy and Purple Sun Academy. He looked into the distance and could see as far as 20 miles away. However, he did not find any students from the 2 academies. The space within the 100 illusions array was 100 miles wide. The target might not be within 20 miles of him. Furthermore, Yixing's vision was also obstructed by obstacles. The further away he was, the more he couldn't see due to the obstacles. The target might be within a radius of 20 miles from him, so he had to search carefully. With his eyesight, it was definitely not a difficult task to find the target. Yixing changed his position at lightning speed. Every few miles, he would look for the highest point and observe his surroundings from afar. He only targeted the students from Crown Sky Academy and Purple Sun Academy. He did not care about the other students. However, if someone did not know what was good for them and provoked him, he would naturally take action. For example, Yixing was blocked by 2 level 9 martial artists. One was in the early stage of level 9, and the other was in the middle stage of level 9. Yi Xing did not say a word to the two people who wanted him to hand over all the array formation cards on him. He rushed over. His body was glowing with a golden light. He did not even use his inner strength. He used his invincible golden body to crush the two of them. The early stage level 9 martial artist had 1 array formation card. The middle stage level 9 martial artist had 7 array formation cards. Obviously, the two of them snatched the array formation cards so that the middle stage level 9 martial artist could enter the top 10. He had a total of 54 array formation cards on him. If the number of array formation cards on the top of the rankings was higher than the average number, he would have the hope of entering the top 10 based on the number of array formation cards in his hand. Regardless of whether the array formation cards in his hand could enter the top 10, Yi Xing did not plan to stop. His goal was to let Crown Sky Academy and Purple Sun Academy eat a big duck egg and eliminate them all. Yi Xing continued forward. Not long after, Yi Xing was delighted. He found a group of students from Purple Sun Academy. There were only 5 of them. 2 were in the early stage of level 9, and 3 were in the peak of level 8. Yi Xing immediately dashed over with a bright smile. Not long after, the 5 of them also discovered Yi Xing. Someone pointed at him and shouted in surprise, "Look, it's the trash from Purple Mountain Academy. He's the murderer of Xianxia Temple. Destroy him." The 5 of them looked excited and also rushed toward Yi Xing. Even the 8 students from Crown Sky Academy, 2 of whom were in the middle stage level 9, had their array formation cards snatched by Yi Xing. The group from Purple Sun Academy only had 5 people. Moreover, the 2 level 9 martial artists were only in the early stage of level 9. The result was obvious. Yi Xing easily crushed the 5 of them with his physical body. He snatched their array formation cards with a few punches and kicks. What surprised Yi Xing was that they only had 5 array formation cards, 1 for each person. Did they not snatch others' array formation cards? Yi Xing did not understand, but he soon understood. Yi Xing climbed up a nearby peak and looked into the distance. He saw another group from Purple Sun Academy several miles away. This group only had 4 people. 2 were in the peak of level 8, 1 was in the middle stage of level 9, and 1 was in the late stage of level 9. With a late stage level 9 martial artist, this was definitely a heavyweight group. Yi Xing quickly realized that the group just now might have given their array formation cards to this group. Among the 10 students from Purple Sun Academy, 1 was in the peak of level 9, and 1 was in the late stage of level 9. Among the 1,050 people, there were only 4 in the peak of level 9. With their strength, there was no doubt that they would be in the top 10 if they snatched array formation cards. However, the late stage of level 9 was different. There were about 30 of them in the late stage of level 9. But other than the 3 in the peak of level 9, there were only a few spots in the top 10. The competition was very fierce. Therefore, the other students from Purple Sun Academy helped to snatch array formation cards, and then handed them to the late stage level 9 students. This way, it would greatly increase the chances of the late stage level 9 students entering the top 10. If that was really the case, then it meant that this late stage level 9 student from Purple Sun Academy had quite a few array formation cards. Yi Xing naturally perked up and chased after them. Lu Jitsai was very happy. Just now, the other group from Purple Sun Academy handed over 8 array formation cards to him. On the other hand, the team he led had snatched 29 array formation cards. Now he had 38 array formation cards on him. If he snatched a few more array formation cards, his chances of entering the top 10 were very high. Lu Jitsai was certain that the peak level 9 He Lieni would enter the top 10. If he also entered the top 10, then there would be 2 students from Purple Sun Academy in the top 10. Seeing that he was getting closer and closer to the top 10, Lu Jitsai was naturally very happy. Senior apprentice brother Lu, there's someone in front. The middle stage level 9 Yoda Shan suddenly pointed forward. Lu Jitsai's gaze followed Yoda Shan's direction. Indeed, a few hundred meters ahead, a person's back was facing them, blocking their path. Only peak level 8. Senior apprentice brother Lu, we can snatch another array formation card. Yoda Shan said excitedly. Let's go. Lu Jiazai chuckled and waved his hand forward. I opened this road, I planted this tree. If you dare to come here, leave behind your array formation card. Yi Xing said, slowly turning around. A mere peak level 8 actually dared to ask them to leave behind their array formation cards. Lu Jiazai and the other 4 were all enraged. When Yi Xing turned around and saw Yi Xing's face clearly, the 5 were both angry and amused. Yoda-shan said disdainfully, I was wondering who dared to block our path. So it's a trash student from a trash school like you. Lu Jiazai's eyes spat out flames of fury. Xianxia Temple died at your hands? Yi Xing nodded. He wanted to die, so I fulfilled his wish. Lu Jiazai snorted angrily. Deshan, don't worry about anything. Just kill him. Although he was furious, Lu Jiazai clearly didn't think much of Yi Xing and didn't attack personally. Yoda-shan walked out, his expression cold. Kid, you should be the last remaining of Mount Zishan School. As soon as he finished speaking, Yoda-shan's figure shot towards Yi Xing like an arrow, like a lion hunting a rabbit. Supreme level martial art, Furious Lion Fist. Yoda-shan punched out instantly, his powerful aura almost condensing into the shadow of a furious lion. Light bloomed from his fist, condensing into an extremely terrifying inner strength, forming a huge fist shadow. A mid-9th level 9 full-force attack was overwhelming and terrifying. To a peak level 8 martial artist, this was undoubtedly a fatal blow. However, Yi Xing's eyes didn't show the slightest bit of fear. His expression was still calm as he faced his opponent's fist and pointed out a finger. Yi Xing's palm instantly glowed with a golden light, and the inner strength condensed into a huge shadow of a finger. Supreme level martial art, Heavenly Annihilation Finger. Yoda-shan sneered. His cultivation was much higher than Yi Xing's. In terms of inner strength, he would definitely win. In terms of martial arts, he had mastered supreme level martial arts and had reached the realm of great success. Yi Xing dared to use his finger to block his fist, he was simply courting death. However, he didn't know that in Yi Xing's eyes, he was also vulnerable. In terms of inner strength, Yi Xing's Origin Restoration Force had reached the 6th level, which was comparable to a late-stage level 9. In terms of martial arts attainment, his Heavenly Annihilation Finger was at the level of perfection. In terms of physical strength, his invincible golden body was at the level of great success. No matter in which aspect, he could crush his opponent. When all 3 aspects were combined, it was even more crushing. Bang! With a loud explosion, Yoda-shan screamed. A bloody hole was almost poked in his fist, and the terrifying power instantly sent him flying. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Today, I will do my best to explode. At least 3 chapters and strive for 4. Chapter 155. Lu Jiazai and the rest were dumbfounded. They didn't know Yi Xing's strength, but a peak LV8 sent a mid-stage LV9 flying with 1 finger. This was too shocking. Yoda-shan felt his blood boiling, and his organs were twisted into a ball. He felt a sharp pain. While flying, Yoda-shan spat out a mouthful of blood. It was obvious that he was heavily injured. As long as one had an array token, they wouldn't be transported to the 100 illusion array. Hence, Yi Xing wasn't in a hurry to snatch their array tokens. They would throw them out crying later. Yoda-shan flew for dozens of meters before crashing to the ground. He spat out another mouthful of blood. His hands were on the ground as he struggled, but he couldn't get up for a while. Senior brother Yoda. 2 students at the peak of level 8 hurriedly ran towards Yoda-shan. As for Lu Jiazai, his eyes were filled with shock and fear as he stared at Yi Xing. Even he could not defeat Yoda-shan in 1 move. With a faint smile on his face, Yi Xing walked toward Lu Jiazai step by step. Lu Jiazai drew his sword and pointed it at Yi Xing with a grave expression. Yi Xing chuckled. Aren't I a trash student from a trash school? What are you afraid of? Are you worse than trash? Lu Jiazai's face turned green. You really think I'm afraid of you? Yi Xing smiled disdainfully. You're afraid of me. Bullsh *t. Lu Jiazai's face turned red. I'm afraid of you? Take this. Swoosh, Lu Jiazai's sword moved like a curtain. The sword light shrouded Yi Xing's supreme-grade martial art, Drizzle Sword Technique. This move, Drizzle Sword Technique, was really like rain. It was obvious that Lu Jiatsai's swordsmanship was extremely profound. The Drizzle Sword Technique was at least at the phenomenal stage. With such terrifying swordsmanship, Yodashan took 3 strikes from Lu Jiatsai. However, while Yodashan couldn't withstand 3 strikes from Yi Xing couldn't even withstand a single finger from Yodashan. Facing the sword light, Yi Xing remained calm. Yi Xing clenched his fingers into a fist and faced the sword light that filled the sky. Instead of advancing, he retreated and punched out with both fists. In an instant, there were countless fist shadows. High-grade martial art, Thousand Shadows Fist. Dang 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 dang, a series of explosions rang out. Each of Lu Jiatsai's sword strikes was repelled by Yi Xing's fists. Yi Xing's physical body was strong, and he was protected by a thick inner force. Even if the sword in Lu Jiatsai's hand was a top-grade mortal weapon, it could not hurt him at all. Drizzle Sword Art. The sword was like a drizzle, densely packed. This was a martial art that relied on speed and quantity to achieve victory. However, Yi Xing's Thousand Shadows fist was not any slower than his opponent's, and the number of moves was not any less than his opponent's. In fact, it was even better. After Yi Xing broke through the sword light that filled the sky, there were still a few fist shadows that continued to bombard Lu Jiatsai. Lu Jiatsai was shocked. He retreated and changed from offense to defense. He used the Drizzle Siege. The sword light became denser and surrounded him like a city wall, completely protecting his body. Yi Xing strode forward like an unstoppable flood. He changed his fist technique and turned the 1,000 punches into one punch. High-grade martial art, Tyrant Dragon Fist. Yi Xing's fist struck out, connecting with the power of heaven and earth. It was like an overbearing giant dragon rushing out. At this moment, Yi Xing's figure was nowhere to be seen in Lu Jiatsai's eyes. There was no fist either. There was only a giant dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws at him. Clang 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 clang. In the face of absolute power, any defense was futile. Lu Jiatsai's Drizzle Siege collapsed instantly. In the blink of an eye, the dense sword light shattered into nothingness. Only a long sword was left, blocking Yi Xing's fist. Clang. There was an explosion and the sword in Lu Jiatsai's hand was bent. He felt a terrifying force coming at him and his body flew backward involuntarily. Although his defense was much higher than Yodashan's, his chi and blood were in turmoil. It was very uncomfortable. Take another punch from me. Yi Xing roared and used the 4 directional steps. His body flashed and he was almost faster than Lu Jiatsai's retreating speed. He threw another punch. It was still the Tyrant Dragon Fist. Lu Jiatsai looked at the overbearing giant dragon charging at him. His expression turned to horror. He knew that he couldn't take this punch. In the blink of an eye, Lu Jiatsai threw out all the formation cards he had. A white light enveloped him and he disappeared. He was very straightforward. He decisively threw away the formation cards and was eliminated from the 100 Illusions formation. Yi Xing's punch missed, but he was delighted to see a large number of formation cards floating in the air. He scanned them with his superbrain and found that there were 38 of them. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xing had all 38 formation cards in his hand. Including his 54 cards, Yi Xing had a total of 92 formation cards. Entering the top 10 was a given. Yi Xing looked at Yodashan and the other 2 not far away. They still had 3 formation cards on them. If he took them, he would have 95. Although he could guarantee a spot in the top 10 with 70 or so cards, Yi Xing didn't want to let go of any of the formation cards on Guantian and Purple Sun students. Seeing Yi Xing walking towards them step by step, Yodashan and the other 2 had a bitter look on their faces. They also threw out their formation cards. Even Lu Jiatsai was defeated by Yi Xing. The 3 of them knew that they couldn't escape from Yi Xing's hands. The sooner they handed over their formation cards, the less they would be beaten up. Outside the 100 Illusions formation, Marquis of Purple Sun's face was extremely gloomy. He and Marquis Guantian had been waiting for Yi Xing to be eliminated. However, after waiting for a long time, there was no sign of Yixing. In the end, 5 students from Purple Sun College were eliminated. That wasn't all. Not long after, another 4 students from Purple Sun College were eliminated. This time, even Lu Jetsai, who was in the late 9th stage, was eliminated. In Marquis Ziyang's expectation, Lu Jetsai was supposed to enter the top 10. However, he was eliminated and didn't even enter the top 300. 9 out of the 10 students from Purple Sun College had been eliminated. Only He Liani was left. Marquis Purple Sun was so angry that his face turned green. Who was it that eliminated you from the formation? Although Marquis Purple Sun had already guessed the result based on the 5 people eliminated previously, and there was a 99% chance that it was Yixing, he still wanted to hear another answer from Lu Jetsai. Because if it was Yixing who eliminated Lu Jetsai and the rest, it meant that Yixing had the ability to fight with a peak 9th layer martial artist. This was definitely not what Marquis Purple Sun wanted to see. Marquis Guantian also raised his spirits and pricked up his ears. He also wanted to hear another answer. Unfortunately, the truth was already decided. Lu Jetsai said with a face full of shame, It's Yixing. Thinking back to how they mocked Yixing as a trash student from a trash school, Lu Jetsai and the rest were eliminated by Yixing, this made them feel ashamed. Marquis Purple Sun frowned and waved his sleeves gloomily at Lu Jetsai and the rest. He was too lazy to ask any more. This little bastard. Marquis Guantian gritted his teeth and spat out a few words. Of course, he was very unhappy. Lu Jetsai had been eliminated by Yixing. This meant that their late 9th layer student, He Hongguang, would also be in danger if he encountered Yixing. It had to be said that Marquis Guantian's premonition was very accurate. After Yixing obtained Lu Jetsai and the rest, he walked for about 30 miles and found He Hongguang. He Hongguang was the same as Lu Jetsai, completely disregarding Yixing, who was at the peak of 8th layer. His outcome was naturally the same as Lu Jetsai's. In just 3 moves he was already injured by Yixing. Before Yixing could strike viciously, he threw out his formation card and was eliminated from the 100 illusion formation. Although He Hongguang did not have as many formation cards as Lu Jetsai, he still had 29. This made Yixing's formation cards reach a total of 121. 121 formation cards. This was not just the top 10, it was the rhythm of taking first place. Of course, the final ranking was not based on the number of formation cards. Therefore, as long as one entered the top 10 in the first round, it was fine. 1st and 10th were the same. Ziyang Academy and Guantian Academy only have 1 peak 9th layer student left. Although I have enough formation cards, I will eliminate as many of you as I can. I will strive to eliminate all of you. Yixing thought to himself and continued to search for his target. At this time, Marquis Guantian was like Marquis, so angry that his face turned green. He Hongguang was eliminated, and Guantian Academy also eliminated 9. Zishan Academy also eliminated 9. The 3 academies could be considered equal in this aspect. However, in the eyes of Marquis Guantian and Marquis Zheng, Zishan Academy obviously could not be compared to Guantian and Ziyang Academies. In their eyes, Zishan Academy was completely eliminated, and their students were all accepted as disciples. This was also a normal result. Therefore, Marquis Guantian and Marquis Zheng were incomparably angry at this change, and resentment accumulated in their hearts. On the other hand, Marquis Zishan had been calm and composed all along. Outsiders could see the bearing and spirit of the 3 at a glance. The number of eliminated people was increasing, and it was already close to 700 people. It would not be long before the first round of selection was completely over. Yixing could roughly guess that there was not much time left for the first round of selection, and martial artists in the 100 illusion formation were already very rare. He had to find the peak 9th layer students of Guantian and Ziyang Academies as soon as possible. By now, most of the students had already gone into hiding. Only those who had the ambition to fight for the top 10 were still wandering around. As peak 9th layer students, they would not go to the extent of hiding. Therefore, Yixing still had the confidence to find them. In the distance, Yixing found another group of familiar people. Chu Jingyue, Chu Jingnan, and a total of 5 people. With Chu Jingyue, the violent woman with abnormal combat strength, their team was naturally unstoppable. They swept through everything in their way. Although Yi Xing would definitely meet Chu Jingyue in the top 10 matches of the second round of selection, Yi Xing did not want to meet her again in the 100 illusion formation. Otherwise, she would definitely flip out. Yi Xing saw the other party from afar, but the other party could not discover him. Yi Xing avoided them from afar. In the end, because he avoided Chu Jingyue and the others, he changed his direction. Not long after, Yi Xing saw another student of Ziyang Academy. Naturally, it was that peak 9th layer student, He Liani. Kill you, then kill the other one, and it will be a success. Yi Xing's eyes lit up, and he dashed toward He Lian. 7 votes away from breaking 100 votes this month. Can you break it? Chapter 156. When He Liani saw Yi Xing walking towards him, he stopped in his tracks, a trace of surprise appearing in his eyes. He did not know that the other 9 students of Ziyang Academy had already been eliminated by Yi Xing. When Yi Xing approached, the surprise on He Liani's face had already disappeared, leaving only a cold smile. You dare to come after seeing me, He Liani. You are quite bold. Yi Xing was also extremely disdainful of He Liani's arrogant expression. He was only at the peak of rank 9. Not to mention that he was not a martial saint, he was not even a half-step martial saint. It was as if He Liani was an incredible expert. In Yi Xing's opinion, this was a kind of illness that needed to be treated. Yi Xing looked at He Liani calmly. I came for you. For me? He Liani's face revealed a slightly exaggerated disdainful smile. Should I say that you are bold? Or an idiot? Or an idiot? 4 directional steps. Yi Xing's figure suddenly flashed and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of He Liani. Slap Yi Xing's right hand clenched together and slapped towards He Liani's face. To treat this kind of illness, one had to slap the face. Yi Xing's speed was beyond He Liani's expectations. Moreover, it was a sudden attack. He Liani realized that he could not avoid Yi Xing's slap, causing him to be greatly shocked. Yi Xing's slap was so fast that He Liani did not have time to draw his sword and counterattack. He could only lean back, but he still could not avoid Yi Xing's slap. At the same time He Liani leaned back, his right leg kicked up like lightning. If Yi Xing's slap landed, he would also be kicked in the chin. Yi Xing had been forced to stop by this internecine battle. However, Yi Xing seemed to have expected He Liani's reaction. His other hand pressed down, hitting the leg that was kicked up. Slap! A loud and clear sound rang out. 4 bright red fingerprints appeared on He Liani's face. Although he leaned back a certain distance, half of his palm was still hit by Yi Xing's slap. At the same time, Yi Xing retreated like a ghost, leaving behind an afterimage. Clang! At this moment, He Liani finally drew his sword and slashed out a dazzling white sword chi. The sword chi was so sharp that it instantly split the air in front of it into 2 halves. Moreover, it was like a dazzling white light that slashed into the distance. Unfortunately, the sword chi only hit a string of afterimages of Yi Xing. Yi Xing's body had already dodged to the side, and the sword chi missed. My hands hurt. My. Helian Yi's eyes turned red in an instant. His fury reached the heavens. He was actually slapped by a level 8 martial artist. This was simply outrageous. He Liani had never been humiliated like this. I'm going to kill you. He Liani roared word by word. While roaring, He Liani had already rushed toward Yi Xing. His figure completely disappeared. Only a ball of dazzling sword chi shot out. Extreme martial art, rainstorm sword technique. Drizzle sword technique and rainstorm sword technique. One was gentle and the other was violent. In terms of attack power, rainstorm sword technique was much fiercer than drizzle sword technique. Dark clouds cover. He Liani jumped up. The sword chi was like a curtain. Like a dark cloud covering the head, he attacked Yi Xing. He Liani's rainstorm sword technique had already gone far in the great success realm. Its attainment far surpassed Lu Jiatsai's drizzle sword technique. Under the cover of this dark cloud, there was already a force of heaven and earth. That terrifying sword force multiplied the power of this move. Even Yi Xing could not be underestimated. Upper-grade martial art, Thousand Shadows Fist. Yi Xing waved both of his arms and executed the Thousand Shadows Fist of the stage of perfection. Layers of fist shadows soared into the sky and blocked the dark cloud that covered the sky. Seeing that Yi Xing was actually able to block his sword move in a head-on battle, this made He Liani even more surprised. Yi Xing's strong point was not only his fast movement technique. His strength was completely qualified to fight with him. This made He Liani even more irritated. Thunder and lightning flash. He Liani roared again. The rainstorm sword technique first had dark clouds, then lightning, and finally a rainstorm. This sword technique itself paid attention to the force of heaven and earth. The more it was executed, the stronger its power. As He Liani's move changed, the blade of the sword slashed out like lightning. It brought along a series of thunderous sounds, shocking people's hearts. Every sword strike was accompanied by a clap of thunder and a bolt of lightning. The power was extremely terrifying. Origin Restoration Force. The Origin Restoration Force in Yi Xing's body exploded and condensed into two palms. Two balls of dazzling light appeared in the center of his palms and slapped out towards the opponent's sword. Boom, 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 boom. The sword and palm collided, producing a series of explosive sounds. The power was appalling and spread out for several miles. Within the radius of several miles, several students who were hiding heard the noise and came out from their hiding places to watch from afar. He Liani was an influential figure among the students who participated in the selection this time. Among the 1,050 people, there were a total of 4 people who were at the peak of the 9th rank. Naturally, all the students recognized him. Seeing a martial artist of the 8th rank fighting against He Liani, who was at the peak of the 9th rank, the spectators from afar were all dumbfounded. After the terrifying explosion, He Liani's thunder and lightning flash was once again blocked by Yi Xing. It was still useless. 2 consecutive moves were not able to harm Yi Xing at all. Instead, he was the one who was slapped by Yi Xing at the beginning. The contrast between the two made He Liani unable to restrain his anger. The third move, Rainstorm Downpour, die for me. He Liani roared loudly and his attacks became even fiercer. The first 2 moves, Dark Clouds Gathering and Thunder and Lightning Flash, were all moves that gathered momentum. The power was slightly stronger than the later moves. When it came to the third move, Rainstorm Downpour, the momentum gathered by the first 2 moves finally erupted. He Liani waved the sword in his hand and sword light poured out like a torrential rain. It was really like a torrential rain pouring down. The power was much stronger than the gentle drizzle sword technique by a large margin. At this moment, Yi Xing activated his super brain scanning mode. The opponent was getting stronger and stronger as the battle went on. Yi Xing was too lazy to drag on with the opponent. He wanted to end the battle as soon as possible. In an instant, Yi Xing found several flaws in He Liani's sword moves. The Rainstorm sword technique did not have many moves, but it was extremely difficult to cultivate. Although He Liani's attainments were very far from the realm of great success, it was still not the realm of perfection. The further the moves progressed, the more flaws there would be. Under the scanning of Yi Xing's super brain, none of the flaws could escape Yi Xing's eyes. Moreover, they would be magnified by a lot. Although there were flaws in the other party's moves, the accumulated momentum had exploded, and the flaws were covered by such a terrifying attack. It was impossible to easily break the other party's moves through these flaws. If the attack power was too weak, before you could break the opponent's flaws, you would already be defeated by the opponent's terrifying attacks. Therefore, although there were many flaws in He Liani's sword moves, it was not something that an ordinary person could break. It just so happened that Yi Xing was not an ordinary person. Tyrant Flood Dragon transforming into dragon. Yi Xing roared and used the ultimate move of the Tyrant Flood Dragon Fist. The Tyrant Flood Dragon Fist in the realm of perfection did not need to accumulate momentum. Every punch had a boundless momentum that was connected to the heaven and earth. Yi Xing punched out with both of his fists. His arms were like flood dragons soaring into the sky as he carried out the ultimate leap. He wanted to transform into a true dragon with an extremely surging explosive force. In He Lianyi's eyes, Yixing's two fists had turned into two giant flood dragons. They were incomparably overbearing. Suddenly, the giant flood dragon turned from one horn to two horns. The scales on its body were also instantly dazzling like a true dragon. The power of the fists multiplied. Boom! Yixing's tyrant flood dragon fist had reached its peak. The power of the fist covered the sky. It was powerful and terrifying. It just happened to attack the flaw in the opponent's sword move. The accumulated momentum of the rainstorm was directly dispersed by Yixing's fist power. There was no longer any rainstorm, thunder, lightning, or dark clouds. Under the tyrant flood dragon fist, the world was clear and bright. The sword move was broken and the sword power instantly turned into nothingness. However, Yixing's terrifying fist power continued forward without any decrease in power. The treasured sword in He Lianyi's hand was instantly knocked aside by Yixing's fist. Bang! One fist knocked away the treasured sword, while the other landed unimpeded on He Lianyi's chest. Puff! He Lianyi immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His body instantly retreated backward and was sent flying by Yixing's fist. Under such a fist power, He Lianyi's blood and qi were surging. It almost flowed in reverse. His internal organs were greatly shaken and he felt bursts of intense pain. He was already severely injured. In the distance, the spectating students were all dumbfounded. Which school's expert was this? He was only at the 8th stage of the star-tempering realm, but he actually sent He Lianyi flying while spitting blood. Could his combat strength be any more abnormal? The other students didn't know, but the few students who saw Yixing beat He Lianyi to the point of spitting blood knew that a big dark horse would appear in the Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment this time. He Lianyi was defeated, so the array card would definitely be taken away. Even a peak 9th stage martial artist was eliminated and couldn't enter the top 300. Who knew how shocked the people outside would be? Yixing walked step by step toward He Lianyi. He seemed to be very slow, but he arrived in front of He Lianyi in just 2 steps. Seeing that Yixing's fist was gathering inner strength and was about to launch an attack, He Lianyi coughed out a mouthful of blood and threw out his array card at the same time. Since he was defeated, he couldn't keep his array card. He would just suffer a little more and be beaten up a little more. He might as well be a little more free and easy. After He Lianyi lost his array card, his body was instantly enveloped by a white light and disappeared. Yixing kept all the array cards that He Lianyi threw out. He had a lot of array cards on him, a total of 71. If he didn't meet Yixing, this guy would definitely enter the top 10. Yixing had 121 array cards on him. With the addition of these 71 cards, he had a total of 192 array cards. This number wasn't small at all. He had obtained about 1/5 of the total. In terms of the number of array cards, he was most likely first. However, Yixing still wanted to find a 9th Heaven Peak student from Sky Crown Academy and eliminate him as well, eliminating him from the competition. If that was the case, then the number of formation tokens on Yixing's body would really shock everyone. Unfortunately, just when he had this thought, a loud and clear voice suddenly sounded and resounded in the ears of all the students in the 100 illusion array. The 750 eliminated students have all been eliminated. The first round of selection is over. All the students in the array stop all activities. After the countdown of 3, they will all be teleported out of the array. 3, 2, 1. There's a 4th update tonight. Fight. Chapter 157. Outside the 100 Illusions array, He Lianyi's face was full of humiliation, and he didn't dare to look at Marquis Xiang's face. Marksman was trembling with anger. The first round of selection had already eliminated 749 people, and it was about to end. But the last person to be eliminated was actually the only remaining member of the Xiang Academy, He Lianyi. With a cultivation at the peak of the 9th level, he was actually eliminated at the last moment. Was there still justice in this? Who was it? Who eliminated you? Marquis Xiang roared in a low voice. Although he had some guesses in his heart, he absolutely didn't dare to believe that it was the truth. It's Yixing. He Liani's voice was trembling, and his body was also trembling. He was afraid that Marquisang would suddenly slap him to death. Boom! Marquisang only felt a buzzing sound in his head. Although he had already expected it, when he heard He Liani say it, Marquisang still found it hard to accept. His chest felt as if it was heavily punched by someone. Even his breathing became stifled, and he was slightly unable to catch his breath. As one of the 3 supreme academies, Xiang Academy had never been completely wiped out in the Falling Star sect's disciple selection since its establishment. This was the first time. Previously, he even mocked Mount Zishan Academy for being completely wiped out, and even gave the order to completely wipe out Mount Zishan Academy. In the end, all the students of his Xiang Academy were completely wiped out by Yixing from Mount Zishan Academy. How could this not cause Marquisang to tremble with anger? Even Marquis Guantian, who was at the side, was trembling with anger. 9 people from their Guantian Academy had also been eliminated by Yixing. Only Li Xiaoyuan, who was at the peak of the 9th level, was left. But the problem was that He Liani was eliminated by Yixing. If Li Xiaoyuan were to encounter Yixing in the 2nd round of the top 10 competition, would he be a match for him? This was where Marquis Guantian suffered the most. His Guantian Academy, one of the 3 supreme academies, had the student with the highest cultivation being defeated by the student of the trashiest academy. He couldn't afford to lose face. Now, he could understand Marquis Xiang's feelings. Marquis Ziyang and Marquis Guantian were infuriated, while Zi Shanho, who was not far away, was as calm as ever. At this moment, outside the 100 Illusions formation, a large area of light flickered. The 300 people who had won the first round of the selection were collectively teleported out. The gazes of Marquis Ziyang and Marquis Guantian sharpened as they searched for Yixing very quickly. Their gazes landed on Yixing. Sensing the gazes of the 2 peak martial sages, Yixing turned his head back to look at them. A thought-provoking smile appeared on his face as if he was mocking them. This made Marquis Ziyang and Marquis Guanyang gnash their teeth in hatred. Soon, the disciples of the Falling Star sect took away the registration badges of the 300 selected students. From now on, these 300 people would no longer be students of the various academies, but outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. Gong Yangxian stood on the high platform and pressed his hands together, causing the crowd to fall silent. Congratulations to the 300 selected juniors. From now on, you will be outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. The Falling Star sect will be your new home, and your home for the rest of your life. The Falling Star sect will focus on nurturing you, so that you will be able to achieve great things. Most of the students felt their blood boiling after hearing this, especially those who had been selected. As for those who had been eliminated, their eyes were filled with envy and hope. Actually, Gong Yangxian's words were just official words. Although they sounded nice, they could not be taken seriously. It was true that the Falling Star sect would focus on nurturing outer disciples, but it was impossible for them to focus on nurturing them. For Theanli, inner disciples who had become martial sages were the true backup. Outer disciples? Apart from disciples who had the potential to become martial sages, outer disciples were not important at all. They would not affect the strength and future of the Falling Star sect. As such, it was better for outer disciples with martial sages with heavenly destinies, as they would definitely become martial sages in the future and enter the inner disciples. As for outer disciples with ordinary destinies, the Falling Star sect could not afford to nurture them well. After entering, the most of the ordinary outer disciples would do odd jobs. The outer disciples of martial sages with heavenly destinies had already entered the Falling Star sect through the direct recruitment a few days ago. Right now, everyone here was of ordinary destinies. Even if they passed the selection and became an outer disciple, they would only have a chance to learn the spiritual martial inheritance. Wanting to be focused on nurturing them? Dream on. Of course, this did not stop the students from wanting to become outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. Learning the spiritual martial inheritance was the biggest reason. No matter how high one's talent was, one would need a martial technique to succeed. Even if one had martial sages with heavenly destinies, without a martial technique, they would not be able to become martial sages. Even geniuses with martial sages with heavenly destinies needed the spiritual martial inheritance. Naturally, ordinary martial sages with heavenly destinies needed it even more. Only by learning the spiritual martial inheritance would one have the hope of becoming martial sages. If one did not enter they would not be able to become martial sages. Although there were martial sages with spiritual martial inheritances in the Jianghu, they could not compare to the spiritual martial inheritances of the Falling Star sect. Furthermore, the spiritual martial inheritances of the Wandering Star sect were not suitable for everyone. Therefore, they were destined to be limited. It would be good if they could take in a few disciples in their lifetime. They would not be able to spread their skills and form a big faction. If they could not form a big faction, they would not have the power to fight against the Falling Star sect. Without power, they would not be able to compete for resources. And resources were very important for cultivation. Therefore, the limitations of the Wandering Star sect were too great. Unless they were forced to or under special circumstances, no one would be willing to become a disciple of a Falling Star sect. Everyone wanted to become a disciple of a Falling Star sect. In order to become a martial sages, the younger generation of the Falling Star Kingdom racked their brains trying to enter the Falling Star sect. Unfortunately, the Falling Star sect was not willing to focus on nurturing ordinary martial sages. In addition, their resources were limited. Naturally, they could not accept everyone. Every time they accepted ordinary martial sages, they limited the number of ordinary martial sages to 300. However, since they had accepted them as disciples, even if they were not focused on nurturing them, they still had to give them a chance. Therefore, the Falling Star sect still took out some resources to reward the top 10. After entering Thief 1 entered the top 10 among all the outer disciples, the rewards would be even more generous. Those were resources that only the martial sages and martial sages could enjoy. However, ordinary martial sages could also fight for it as long as they had the ability. This was absolutely fair. For the top 10 disciples in this selection, the Falling Star sect will reward them handsomely. Next, I will announce the list of the top 10 disciples. Get ready for the ranking battle. Gong Xian's voice continued to ring out. The scene instantly became lively. Who did not want the rewards of the Falling Star sect? Regardless of whether it was the disciples who had been selected or those who had been eliminated, most of them were whispering to each other and discussing animatedly. They were even more envious of the top 10 disciples. Gong Xian held a list and announced loudly, 10th place, Zishui Academy, Song Shiwen, late 9th rank, 40 array cards. 9th place, Heavy Mountain Academy, Bao Zipping, late 9th rank, 41 array cards. 8th place, Nanhua Academy, Chao Xingcheng, late 9th rank, 43 array cards. 7th place, Sichuan Academy, Song Yuanming, late 9th rank, 47 array cards. 6th place, Jiangyuan Academy, Jiang Yongxin, late 9th rank, 52 array cards. 5th place, Guangyuan Academy, by Maowen, late 9th rank, 55 array cards. 4th place, East Lake Academy, Chu Jingyue, mid-9th rank, 56 array cards. When the 5th to 10th place was announced, the crowd was silent. No one made a sound. However, when Gong Xian announced that Chu Jingyue, who was in 4th place, was only at mid-9th rank, there was an immediate uproar. Not only did she obtain more array cards than all the late 9th rank disciples, but even by Maowen, who was at the peak of was ranked behind her. This indeed surprised many people. However, this was only a ranking based on the number of array cards and not the final ranking. The final ranking was based on strength. In terms of strength, Chu Jingyue, who was in mid-9th rank, could also be ranked 4th. It would be shocking if she surpassed the peak of the Falling Star sect. Gong Xian was not affected by the crowd's exclamations and continued to read the list. 3rd place, Crown Academy, Li Xiaoyuan, peak of the 71 array cards. 2nd place, Capital Academy, Wen Tongfang, peak of the 99 array cards. When Gong Xian read to this point, before he even announced the 1st place, many people quivered. They suddenly thought of something shocking, causing all the hair on their bodies to stand on end. They were surprised to find that in the top 10, Bai Maowen, Li Xiaoyuan, and Wen Tongfang, who were at the peak of the had already come out. The other peak of the Falling Star sect was Helian Yi from Ziyang Academy, who had been eliminated in advance. In other words, the first place was not a peak of the Falling Star sect. Then who was it? Except for a few people who knew that it was Yi Xing, most people did not know and were shocked. Who on earth had obtained more array cards than the 3 peak of the Falling Star sect? Suddenly, the whole place quieted down. Everyone's eyes were focused on Gong Yangxian, waiting for him to announce the first place. After Gong Yangxian announced the second place, he paused and looked surprised. Obviously, he was also surprised by the first place. After a few breaths, Gong Yangxian continued, "First place, Zishan Academy, Yi Xing, peak of Theon 192 array cards." After Gong Yangxian announced, there was an uproar below. Even the marquises were shocked and could not help but talk about it. Among the 105 marquises present, there were not many who were close to Zishan Ho, Ziyang Ho, and Sky Crown Marquis. Most of them were far away, so they did not know Yi Xing. However, they knew Zishan Academy well. Although Zishan Ho had recently shown great strength and was very popular, Zishan Academy was the last academy. The strongest student in the academy was only at the Star Tempering Realm level 8. However, how could Yi Xing, who was only at the Star Tempering Realm level 8, be so powerful and take first place? Even if the first place was not included in the final result, 192 array cards were enough to shock everyone. In an instant, the name Yi Xing was deeply imprinted in everyone's heart. Chapter 158. Yi Xing rubbed his chin. He did not expect that his array formation card would be so much better than the second place. However, the first place was useless. The sects rewards were not distributed according to the number of array formation cards, but according to one's strength. Therefore, if he wanted to get the reward that would allow him to break through level 9 of the Star Tempering Realm quickly, he had to get the first place in the top 10 ranking matches. Yi Xing clenched his fists. He had to get the first place. He had been in the Star Continent for more than 9 months, which meant that he had less than 3 months left before he turned 17. If he wanted to become a martial saint before the age of 17, he only had 3 months left. Therefore, the earlier he broke through the 9th level of the Star Tempering Realm, the higher his chances of becoming a martial saint before the age of 17. The rewards for the top 10 were divided into different levels. The rewards for the top 10 were one level. The rewards for the top 4 were another level. The rewards for the top 3 were another level. Therefore, the rankings did not need to be clear. However, the rewards for the top 10, top 3, top 5, and top 5 would be given out. First was the battle for the top 5. According to the usual practice, the one with the higher cultivation would fight the one with the lower cultivation. Therefore, 3 peak LV9 cultivators and 2 late LV9 cultivators were divided into a group and matched with the other 5 randomly. Soon, Gong Yangxian announced the results. The first round, Wen Tongfang vs Chao Xingsheng. The second round, Li Xiaoyuan vs Yi Xing. The third round, Bai Maowen vs Song Yuanming. The fourth round, Jiang Yongxin vs Song Shiwen. The fifth round, Bao Zipping vs Chu Jingyue. Yi Xing could not help but smile when he saw that his opponent was Li Xiaoyuan from the Sky Crown Academy. Li Xiaoyuan's face also showed a ruthless expression. Yi Xing's cultivation was merely at the peak LV8 LV9 and he was a student of the Purple Mountain Academy, which was a trashy academy. However, he had obtained so many array formation cards and was ranked first. This made Li Xiaoyuan very unhappy. Now that he was facing Yi Xing, he could defeat Yi Xing to vent his anger. As soon as Li Xiaoyuan left the 100 Illusions array, he was among the 300 candidates. He hadn't had the time to interact with the others from Crown Sky Academy, so he didn't know that Yi Xing's array tokens were mostly taken from the students of Purple Sun Academy and Crown Sky Academy. If he knew that He Lieni was eliminated by Yi Xing, he would definitely not have such thoughts after knowing that his opponent was Yi Xing Sky Crown Marquis, a student of Sky Crown Academy, had a solemn expression when he found out that Li Xiaoyuan's opponent was Yi Xing. They naturally knew that Yixing was an extremely strong opponent. Otherwise, Ziyang Academy wouldn't have been completely annihilated in this selection. As for the students of Purple Mountain Academy, although other than Yixing, all 9 of them had been eliminated, Yixing had entered the top 10 with the highest number of array formation cards. This made them very excited. They all knew that the students of Ziyang Academy had been eliminated by Yixing, so they naturally looked forward to seeing Yixing defeat Qing Xiaoyuan as well. Zishanho's expression was as usual. Even if he knew that Yixing had the highest number of array formation cards, there was no change in his expression. With his state of mind, even a little bit of joy and sadness would not show on his face. However, he was still very happy in his heart. After the 5 battles were arranged, the battles immediately began. The first battle was between Wen Tongfang and Chao Xingcheng. The 2 of them quickly ended their battle. Wen Tongfang's strength was clearly higher than Chao Xingcheng's by a level. In less than 10 moves, he defeated Chao Xingcheng and was the first to enter the top 5. The second battle was between Li Xiaoyuan and Yixing. Everyone's spirit was raised. Their eyes were bright and full of expression as they focused on this battle. Yixing's cultivation was only at the peak of the 8th level, but he had the highest number of array formation cards. They all wanted to know what kind of strength Yixing had to be able to snatch so many array formation cards. Yixing's expression was calm. His aura was steady, like a deep abyss. As for Li Xiaoyuan, his expression was somewhat dignified. There was surprise in his eyes, as well as a trace of fear. Li Xiaoyuan had already received a transmission from Marquis Crown. Marquis Crown told him not to be careless. Ziyang Academy's He Liani had been defeated by Yixing and eliminated from the 100 Illusion formation. Li Xiaoyuan was very clear about He Liani. He knew that the latter's strength was not below his. He Liani was actually eliminated from the 100 Illusion formation by Yixing. This greatly surprised Li Xiaoyuan and shocked him. After knowing how powerful Yixing was, Li Xiaoyuan naturally became afraid of Yixing Clang. As soon as he went on stage, Li Xiaoyuan unsheathed his treasured saber and faced Yixing as if he was facing a great enemy. Li Xiaoyuan's actions puzzled many people who were not clear about the situation. Did a martial artist at the peak of the 9th level need to be so nervous in front of a martial artist at the peak of the 8th level, as if he was facing a great enemy? When Gong Yangxian announced the start of the battle, Li Xiaoyuan did not take the initiative to attack. Instead, he adopted a defensive saber stance and stared at Yixing with all his attention. Even Yixing was a little surprised by his opponent's degree of caution, not to mention those spectators who were not clear about the situation. They were all confused, thinking in their hearts, is this peak of the 8th level Yixing so scary? His opponent was defending with all his strength. Yixing naturally would not waste time with him, so he could only take the initiative to attack. High-grade martial art, Tyrant Dragon Fist. Yixing took a large step forward. In an instant, his aura underwent an earth-shattering change. From steadiness to sharpness, from sharpness to overbearingness, he punched towards Li Xiaoyuan. Boom! The power of the fist covered the sky. With the flash of the fist, there was a loud explosion. Li Xiaoyuan's expression suddenly changed. In his eyes, Yixing was infinitely magnified at this moment, turning into a roaring, overbearing dragon that rushed towards him. Even though Li Xiaoyuan's cultivation was at the peak of the 9th level, and his aura was surging and his willpower was firm, he could not help but be affected. Under Yixing's Tyrant Dragon Fist, he was defeated. Kill! Li Xiaoyuan shouted fiercely and stabilized his mind. He forced himself to wake up from the illusion of the oppressive aura and slashed out with his saber. Mountain-breaking saber technique. With a slash of the saber, it could split mountains and cut mountains. What he wanted was an indomitable spirit. Clang! The saber blade and Yixing's fist collided, and there was a loud explosion. The strength of the body refining technique was undoubtedly displayed at this moment. The treasured saber in Li Xiaoyuan's hand was a top-grade mortal weapon, but Yixing could use his flesh to collide head-on. Although inner strength was a big reason, a strong physical body was even more important. If it was a martial artist at the peak of the 9th level who had not cultivated a top-grade body refining technique to the large success stage, even if their inner strength was stronger than Yi Xing's, they would not dare to use their flesh to fight against a top-grade mortal weapon. In the midst of the explosion, Yi Xing's posture was like a mountain. On the other hand, the treasured saber in Li Xiaoyuan's hand rebounded and buzzed. His body leaned back, and he could not help but take a step back. The mountain-breaking saber technique focused on pressing forward with indomitable will. However, Li Xiaoyuan focused on defense. His defense was sufficient, but his offense was insufficient. Naturally, this saber strike could not block Yi Xing's Tyrant Flood Dragon Fist. The Tyrant Dragon Fist emphasized the word tyrant. It used great momentum and boldness to crush the opponent. Now that Li Xiaoyuan's body was retreating, his defense instantly showed signs of collapsing. Yi Xing naturally struck while the iron was hot. The Tyrant Dragon Fist blasted out again, and the overbearing fist rushed straight at Li Xiaoyuan. Li Xiaoyuan took a step back, and his momentum weakened. Under the pressure of Yi Xing's Tyrant Dragon Fist, it was impossible for him to gather his momentum again. He could only continue to weaken under the impact of the Tyrant Dragon Fist. Clang. The second time the saber and the fist collided, Yi Xing was as still as a mountain, while Li Xiaoyuan took 3 steps back. There was a clear difference between the power of the first saber and the first saber. This was the difference between saber moves. Li Xiaoyuan went from defense to retreat, and the power of the mountain-splitting saber technique was naturally greatly reduced. Therefore, although his strength was similar to He Lian's, Yi Xing did not use the super brain scan. He relied on his absolute strength to force Li Xiaoyuan back in 2 moves. The third punch. It was still the Tyrant Dragon Fist. Yi Xing punched out with both fists. The Tyrant Dragon soared into the sky and became a dragon in 1 leap. He used the ultimate move of the Tyrant Dragon Fist. As for Li Xiaoyuan, he was forced to retreat 2 moves. The saber move of the mountain-splitting saber technique had almost completely collapsed. How could he block Yi Xing's punches that had multiplied in strength? Bang! The treasured saber flew out of his hand. Li Xiaoyuan's body seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. He instantly retreated backward and was sent flying by Yi Xing. Li Xiaoyuan spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. He retreated dozens of meters before he fell to the ground. At this moment, the surroundings were silent. Everyone looked at Yi Xing in shock. They never expected that Yi Xing, who was at the peak of the 8th rank, would be able to injure Li Xiaoyuan, who was at the peak of the 9th rank, in just 3 moves. It was unbelievable. On the high platform, Gong Yangxian's voice sounded, "Yi Xing wins." Next round. There was a hint of surprise in Gong Yangxian's eyes. After all, it was too rare to see someone at the peak of the 8th rank defeat someone at the peak of the 9th rank. However, the surprise in his eyes disappeared in a flash. If one was not destined to be a martial saint, what was the use of having strong combat power? If one did not have the opportunity to break through to the Star Vortex realm, could one be stronger than a martial saint? Therefore, as long as Yi Xing did not become a martial saint, the sect would not really pay attention to him. The many nobles were the same. The surprise in their eyes quickly disappeared. The nobles were all high-level martial saints. Naturally, they did not think much of Yi Xing's combat power. Unless one day, Yi Xing could become a martial saint. Moreover, after becoming a martial saint, he could still maintain such a heaven-defying combat power. Only then would they look at him in a different light. Otherwise, if he was just an ordinary martial saint, he would not have much of a future. An ordinary martial saint was worlds apart from a noble. Li Xiaoyuan was eliminated. Yi Xing entered the top 5. The next battle was between Bai Maowen and Song Yuanming. This was another battle between someone at the peak of the 9th rank and someone at the late stage of the 9th rank. There were very few martial artists who could fight above their level. Most of them would not be able to defeat a martial artist whose cultivation was higher than theirs. There was no surprising change in the third battle. Bai Maowen won. Soon it was the fourth battle. Jiang Yongxin versus Song Shiwen. Both of them were at the late stage of the 9th rank. There was not much difference in their strength. After a decisive battle, Jiang Yongxin won and entered the top 5. The fifth battle was another battle of unequal cultivation. It was Bao Ziping versus Chu Jingyue. As the only woman in the top 10, Chu Jingyue's combat power exceeded most people's expectations. Bao Ziping, who was at the late stage of the 9th rank, was defeated by her in just 3 moves. However, with Yi Xing's previous battle power, although Chu Jingyue's combat power exceeded everyone's expectations, it was not too surprising. The first battle ended. 5 people advanced to the next round: Wen Tongfang, Yi Xing, Bai Maowen, Jiang Yongxin, and Chu Jingyue. Author's note: I'm having trouble writing today. Sorry for the delay. The update is a bit late. Chapter 159. In the second round, 3 out of 5 would advance. 1 person would be given a bye while the other 4 would fight. The winner would advance. The bye was given to 2 9th-level peak martial artists, Wen Tongfang and Bai Maowen, to draw lots. In the end, Wen Tongfang was luckier and got the bye. As for the other 4, Bai Maowen was at the peak of 9th level and Yi Xing had defeated someone at the peak of 9th level before. Therefore, the sect missed out on their battles. The final result was that Bai Maowen would fight against Chu Jingyue and Yi Xing would fight against Jiang Yongxin. The focus of this round was the battle between Bai Maowen and Chu Jingyue. Chu Jingyue once again broke out with shocking combat power. Except for the strength of her inner force, which was a little inferior to Bai Maowen's, Chu Jingyue was superior to Bai Maowen in terms of physical strength and martial arts attainments. The two exchanged blows. In just 3 moves, Bai Maowen was hit in the chest by Chu Jingyue. Bai Maowen vomited blood and flew back. Chu Jingyue won and entered the top 3. Everyone was shocked. Yi Xing defeated Li Xiaoyuan in 3 moves and Chu Jingyue defeated Bai Maowen in 3 moves. In this disciple selection, there were 2 geniuses who could fight above their level. In this disciple selection, the martial artists at the peak of 9th level suffered a crushing defeat. Bai Maowen stopped in the top 5, Li Xiaoyuan stopped in the top 10, and He Liani was eliminated in the first round. Now, only Wen Tongfang was left among the martial artists at the peak of 9th level. Could he stop Yi Xing and Chu Jingyue? Everyone felt that there was little hope. After all, defeating someone at the peak of 9th level in 3 moves was terrifying. Unless Wen Tongfang's strength was much higher than the other 3, how could he be a match for Yi Xing and Chu Jingyue? In the next battle, Yi Xing easily defeated Jiang Yongxin and entered the top 3. The first battle was divided into 2 rounds. Wen Tongfang and Chu Jingyue would fight in the first round, and then the winner would fight in the second round with Yi Xing. The final winner would be first. Wen Tongfang's strength was very similar to Bai Maowen and Li Xiaoyuan. He was not much stronger, but he was still defeated by Chu Jingyue. He just took a few more moves. At this point, the 4 peak level 9 martial artists had all been eliminated. Yi Xing and Chu Jingyue would compete for first place. This was an outcome that no one had expected at the beginning. Chu Jingyue was dressed in a tight black leather suit. She had an angelic face and a devilish figure. She was very confident in her own strength. Ever since she stepped onto the path of martial arts, she had always been able to defeat people who were at a higher level than her. Therefore, she had long expected that she would fight her way into the battle for first place. However, she did not expect her opponent to be this strong. She looked at Yi Xing with a complicated expression. Chu Jingyue had met Yi Xing in the 100 illusion array. Although she knew that Yi Xing had the ability to fight above his level, she didn't treat Yi Xing as an opponent. In her opinion, Yi Xing might be comparable to a middle stage 9th heaven, but it was not very likely that he could reach the strength of a late stage 9th heaven. And to fight for first place, one would need to at least have the strength of a peak stage 9th heaven. Moreover, among the peak level 9 martial artists, one's strength had to be at the front. Chu Jingyue had expected her opponent to be one of the 4 peak level 9 martial artists. Who would have thought that it would be Yi Xing? Chu Jingyue's eyes were filled with surprise and a touch of coldness. She remembered very clearly that Yi Xing had taken liberties with her when he had borrowed the strength of her palm to retreat far away in the 100 illusion array. Furthermore, his eyes had been very crafty. He had often swept his gaze across her exquisite body and was very disobedient. I'll take this opportunity to teach him a lesson, Chu Jingyue thought. Yi Xing looked at Chu Jingyue with a natural expression and a faint smile on his face. First impressions were very important. In Chu Jingyue's eyes, Yi Xing's smile seemed to harbor ill intentions. It was like an evil smile. She had really wronged Yi Xing. Although Yi Xing instinctively looked at her a few more times, he had no thoughts about her in his heart, let alone showing an evil smile. Tidal Palm. When Gongyang Xian gave the order to start, Chu Jingyue immediately shouted. Her body soared into the air and she slapped Yi Xing with her palm. In the 100 illusion array, Chu Jingyue had only casually slapped with her palm. Now, she had used a superb martial arts technique. The power of her palm was incomparable to before. Chu Jingyue's tidal palm was very accomplished. It had already reached the consummation realm. Its momentum was very terrifying. It made people feel as if waves were surging toward them. No wonder the peak level 9 martial artists were no match for her. Her attainments in tidal palm were almost at the perfection realm. The strength of her palm was incredible. In the face of Chu Jingyue's terrifying palm, Yi Xing looked surprised but did not show the slightest fear. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and punched out. Upper grade martial arts, Tyrant Dragon Fist. The fist momentum of the Tyrant Dragon Fist was overbearing. Like most powerful offensive martial arts, it emphasized the indomitable spirit. The more one retreated, the weaker the fist momentum and the smaller the power. Yi Xing's Tyrant Dragon Fist was truly superb. When he punched out, he turned into an overbearing dragon in Chu Jingyue's eyes. He roared and rushed over. His fist momentum shook the sky and covered all directions. His powerful physical strength and vigorous inner force were fully unleashed at this moment. Yi Xing did not have the slightest contempt for Chu Jingyue. She could defeat a peak level 9 martial artist in a few moves. Her strength was definitely extraordinary. Naturally, he had to go all out. Otherwise, he would be defeated. Bang! Fist and palm collided. The vigorous inner force collided and bloomed with a bright light. At the same time, there was a loud explosion. In an instant, the terrifying shockwave formed a terrifying shockwave that spread out in all directions. The martial artists who were closer to the two felt a terrifying force rushing toward them. They could not help but take a few steps back. One could imagine how powerful the collision of their fists and palms was. In the explosion, both of them retreated at the same time. Chu Jingyue took 2 steps back while Yi Xing took 3 steps back. In terms of power, Chu Jingyue was slightly better. Both of their eyes were filled with shock at the same time. They were both surprised by the strength of the other party. Although they were surprised, the two of them didn't stop attacking at all. Raging waves hitting the shore. Origin Restoration Force. The two of them roared almost at the same time and unleashed their powerful ultimate techniques, charging toward each other. Raging waves hitting the shore was one of the killing moves of the tidal palm. When the palm came, the power was like a monstrous wave. It came violently with an unstoppable momentum. As for Yi Xing's Origin Restoration Force, it was improved by the super brain, and he had cultivated it to the 6th stage. The strength of his inner force was unparalleled. In an instant, a blinding light of inner force gathered in his palm. Bang! The two palms clapped together and the two of them started a fierce confrontation again. The explosion sounded like a raging wave hitting the shore. The void shook and ripples appeared one after another. Yi Xing felt a terrifying force coming toward him. His body could not help but fall backward. He had to take a step back to maintain his center of gravity and ensure that he did not fall. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xing took 5 to 6 steps back. Chu Jingyue, on the other hand, only took 1 step back. Once again, a terrifying force erupted. Both of his palms attacked Yi Xing. In the second exchange, Yi Xing was obviously at a disadvantage. His opponent's raging waves hitting the shore was indeed very powerful. However, Chu Jingyue's attack at the moment was even more terrifying. It was the ultimate skill of the tidal palm, landslide and tsunami. When the two palms came at the same time, It was as if the mountains and rivers were collapsing and the waves were roaring. Wherever it passed, nothing could stop it. At this moment, Yi Xing instantly activated the super brain scanning mode. Chu Jingyue's every move and every movement of his power was scanned by the super brain. Chu Jingyue's tidal palm had been cultivated to the perfection realm and was close to the perfection realm. It was almost perfect. In terms of martial arts attainments, there were no flaws. However, the tidal palm was only an ultimate martial art. It was not even at the level of the spiritual martial arts. One could imagine that it was definitely not a perfect martial art. There were flaws in martial arts. No matter how much it was cultivated to the perfection realm, there would still be flaws. However, martial arts at the perfection realm basically had powerful and terrifying attacks. They would cover up the flaws and make it difficult for people to detect them. Or even if they did, it would be difficult to crack them. 3 parts restoration force. At this moment, Yi Xing displayed the ultimate skill of the restoration force. His attainments were at the 6th level of the restoration force. His inner force was extremely profound. It suddenly left his body and its power was terrifying. Even if he was facing Chu Jingyue's landslide and tsunami head-on, he would not be at a disadvantage. Moreover, Yi Xing's move had 3 groups of sharp inner force attacking Chu Jingyue's 3 martial arts flaws. Naturally, it broke the opponent's palm momentum in an instant. Boom! The sound of 3 internal energy explosions rang out almost at the same time. With a loud explosion, Chu Jingyue's offensive was destroyed as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Chu Jingyue's body was hit by the terrifying chi force. Her body flew backward for more than 10 meters before she landed on the ground. The terrifying impact made her take a few steps back before she could stabilize her body. The chi and blood in her body were surging. When she circulated her chi, the violent chi in her body rushed up, causing her chest to hurt. She almost vomited blood and staggered. Chu Jingyue covered her towering breasts. Her chest was full of air and she could not fight anymore. She looked at Yi Xing in disbelief. Obviously, she did not expect that she would be defeated after using landslide and tsunami. The young martial artists around were also surprised, especially Chu Jingnen, who was dumbfounded. He never thought that Yi Xing's strength would be so powerful that even his cousin had been defeated. As for the nobles present, they were not surprised. They had already been surprised by Yi Xing's strength. Even if he was stronger, it was not a big deal. Anyway, it was still difficult for them to take him seriously if he was not a martial sage. Gong Yongxian's voice came from the high platform. Yi Xing wins and ranks first. He is rewarded with 1 star gathering pill and 3 supreme grade star accumulation pills. Chu Jingyue and Wen Tongfang rank in the top 3. They are rewarded with 3 supreme grade star accumulation pills. Bai Maowen and Jiang Yongxin rank in the top 5. They are rewarded with 2 supreme grade star accumulation pills. Li Xiaoyuan, Chao Xingchang, Bao Ziping, Zhang Shiwen, and Song Yuanming rank in the top 10. They are rewarded with 1 supreme grade star accumulation pill. Soon, the rewards were distributed to everyone. Yi Xing was overjoyed. The star-gathering pill was infinitely close to the spiritual level. It would definitely help his cultivation break through to the 9th level of the star-tempering realm. Chapter 160. Yi Xing's wish was fulfilled and he became a disciple of the Falling Star sect. Moreover, he was the first in the selection and was rewarded with a star-gathering pill and 3 supreme grade star accumulating pills. Even though he was only an outer disciple who wasn't valued by feet, was still his first step into the sect. Yi Xing believed that it wouldn't be long before he broke through to the star spiral realm and became an inner disciple who would be valued and nurtured by the sect. After being accepted as an outer disciple of the Yi Xing did not speak to Zi Shanho again. Under the lead of the outer disciple Elder Yang Xian and other sect members, he entered the mountain peak where the outer disciple of the Falling Star sect was located. There were more than 1,000 disciples in the outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. They were divided into 3 mountain peaks, the first peak, second peak, and third peak. The Falling Star sect would recruit outer disciples every 3 years. If an outer disciple could break through to the star vortex realm, he would be promoted to an inner disciple. If he couldn't, he would remain an outer disciple. However, the sect obviously wouldn't allow an outer disciple to retire in the sect. If he couldn't become a martial saint within 9 years, he would have to pack his things and return home. Of course, this wasn't expelling him from the sect, it was just letting him go home. In name, he would still be a disciple of the Falling Star sect. The newly recruited disciples would live in the first peak. After 3 years, they would move to the second peak. After another 3 years, they would move to the third peak. After another 3 years, they would pack their things and return home. As a new disciple, Yixing naturally stayed at the first peak. The first peak had the most people, so there was a shortage of rooms. Martial saints and heavenly mandate disciples could stay alone in a room, but ordinary heavenly mandate disciples had to share a room with 2 people. The level of destiny was related to the treatment of the sect. It could be differentiated in many ways. Martial saint destiny disciples were like the gifted class students in the academy. Ordinary destiny disciples were like the ordinary class students. Not only did they live in different places, but the resources and treatment they received were also twice as different. When everything was settled, it was already dusk. The day was almost over. With the star-gathering pill in hand, Yixing planned to break through to star-tempering stage 9 tonight. That way, he would be able to cultivate the origin restoration force to stage 7, which would greatly increase his strength. After consolidating his cultivation, it would be time for him to aim for the top 10 among the outer disciples. By doing so, he would be rewarded with a large amount of resources and could quickly improve his cultivation. By the time he became the number 1 outer disciple, his cultivation would basically be at the peak of the 9th level of the star-tempering realm. At that time, he would be able to obtain the spiritual martial arts inheritance of the sect and go to the depths of the Green Cloud Mountains to search for herbs to cultivate the invincible golden body to the complete realm. After that, he would have to look for opportunities to strive for the martial sage realm. Only when he became a martial sage could he be considered to have entered the door of martial arts. At that time, he would be able to become an inner disciple of the Falling Star sect and learn various spiritual level martial skills. Yixing had already made a plan for the next period of time. However, plans could not keep up with changes. The first night Yixing entered he was already restless. Trouble came knocking on his door. Duan Jinpeng was a well-known figure among the thousands of outer disciples. Other than the new disciples who had just entered the sect, the rest of the outer disciples knew about him. This was because he was ranked in the top 10 of the outer disciples ranking. Although he was the last in the top 10, there were at least 200 half-step martial sages among the thousands of outer disciples. The fact that he could stand out among so many half-step martial sages and rank in the top 10 showed that his strength was indeed extraordinary. An ordinary half-step martial sage could not be compared to him. Moreover, Duan Jinpeng was not only famous because he was ranked in the top 10, but also because he was vicious and merciless. He had been in the Falling Star sect for 3 years. In these 3 years, at least 7 ordinary Heaven's Mandate Realm outer disciples had died in his hands. Each of them was bullied by him until they could not stand it anymore and went to the life and death ring with him. In the end, they all died in his hands. Therefore, Duan Jinpeng was given the nickname Bloody Hands, because his hands were stained with blood. The outer disciples of the Falling Star sect could teach ordinary Heaven's Mandate outer disciples a lesson as long as they had a good reason. However, if an ordinary Heaven's Mandate outer disciple wanted to attack an outer disciple of the martial sage mandate, they could only do so in the arena. There were 2 types of arenas, the duel arena and the life and death ring. The duel arena determined the victor. In the life and death ring, regardless of the outcome, only life and death were determined. It was evident that the sect valued the disciples of the martial sage mandate greatly. At Duan Jinpeng's residence. At this moment, the arrogant and domineering Duan Jinpeng was standing respectfully in front of a young man who was about his age. Duan Jinpeng cupped his fists and bowed as he said, "Senior brother Zhen, may I know what brings you to my humble abode?" Although he and Xianxia had entered the Falling Star sect together 3 years ago, the difference in status between the two was like heaven and earth. Duan Jinpeng only had a 3-star orange fate and was still a half-step martial sage after 3 years in the sect. On the other hand, Xianxia had an 8-star orange fate and became a martial sage in his first year in the sect. Now, he was a 3-star martial sage with a cultivation of Star Vortex Stage 3. Moreover, Xianxia was ranked 10th among the inner disciples. In the eyes of the inner disciples, the number 1 outer disciple was also dog sh*t. Therefore, the difference between him and Xianxia was like heaven and earth. Xianxia was only 19 years old, 1 year younger than Duan Jinpeng. However, he looked very experienced. With his hands behind his back, he slowly walked a few steps and said, "Among the new outer disciples, there is one called Yi Xing from the Zishan County." Duan Jinpeng laughed. He knew that the disciples from the Zishan County, whether it was his batch, the previous batch, or the batch before that, had all been beaten up badly by the Falling Star sect. He had even killed a disciple from the Zishan County. He had heard that the Marquis from the Zishan County seemed to have a grudge with Elder Hua Tianshu. Any disciple from the Zishan County would be beaten up badly. Even the martial sage mandate was no exception. Unless he swore to be Zishan Ho's enemy and become part of Elder Hua Tianshu's faction. For example, a few days ago, a martial saint's Heavens Will disciple from the Zishan County called Wang Feng was beaten up by him. That disciple was so scared that he immediately swore to sever all ties with Zishan Ho, to become his enemy and obey Elder Hua Tianshu's orders. Duan Jinpeng said, "Don't worry, senior brother Zhen. I promise I'll teach him a lesson just like the one from a few days ago." Xianxia shook his head and said, "No, I don't want him to be obedient. I want him dead." Duan Jinpeng was surprised. It was rare for a new disciple to want someone dead. It seemed that Yi Xing had a personal grudge with Xianxia. Although Duan Jinpeng was curious about why Xianxia wanted to kill Yi Xing, he knew that it was best not to ask. He licked his lips and said excitedly, "I'm good at killing people, he." In Yi Xing's residence, Yi Xing was adjusting his breath. He wanted to adjust his body to its best condition. He would take the star-gathering pill and break through to the 9th level of the celestial vortex realm in the middle of the night to avoid being disturbed. His junior martial brother Du Dong, who lived in the same room as him, was a man of few words. He was also meditating and cultivating. Xing. Suddenly, a loud shout came from outside, which woke Yi Xing up from his meditation. Yi Xing frowned slightly. Elder Gong Yang said that today was the first day and there was nothing to do. The assignment would only start tomorrow. No one should have come to find him today, and he didn't have any friends in the Falling Star sect. With doubts, Yi Xing stood up and walked outside. Bang! Yi Xing had just taken 2 steps when he heard a loud bang and the door flew in his direction. Obviously, it was kicked away by someone. Yi Xing narrowed his eyes, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. This person didn't come with good intentions. Du Dong, on the other hand, was startled by the sudden kick of the door. Both he and Yi Xing turned to look at the door. It was a young man in his 20s. He wore a silver brocade robe and had a handsome face and an aquiline nose. It was Duan Jinpeng. However, Yi Xing was surprised to see someone he knew standing behind Duan Jinpeng. It was Wang Feng. Duan Jinpeng hooked his index finger at Yi Xing and said, "Kid, come out for a while. I have something to discuss with you." After speaking, Duan Jinpeng turned and left. Is there something wrong with this guy? Yi Xing looked at Duan Jinpeng's back in disdain. Although the other party was a half-step martial saint, Yi Xing didn't think much of him. However, since the other party had come looking for him, Yi Xing naturally had to find out what was going on. He walked out of the door. "Senior brother Wang, what's going on?" Yi Xing asked Wang Feng as he walked out of the door. Wang Feng sneered and walked away without saying anything. However, after taking a few steps, he turned back and said, "This is senior brother Duan Jinpeng, who is ranked 10th on the outer disciple ranking. You don't have anything to do with him. If senior brother Duan is looking for you, just come." Duan Jinpeng walked to an open area and stopped. Wang Feng ran to Duan Jinpeng's side and said, "Senior brother Duan, he's here." At this time, there were already quite a number of new disciples gathered around. Many people had heard the loud sound of the door being kicked open. The people who lived here were all ordinary Heaven's Mandate disciples. Of course, they recognized Yixing, who was ranked first. They all whispered to each other, wondering why senior brother Duan Jinpeng, who was ranked 10th on the outer disciple ranking, was looking for Yixing. "What's the matter, senior brother Duan?" Yixing asked as he walked over. Duan Jinpeng nodded at Wang Feng. Wang Feng said, "Yixing, I heard that you have a star-gathering pill?" Yixing frowned. The star-gathering pill was something that would help him break through to the 9th stage of the star-tempering realm. He wouldn't give it to anyone. He nodded. Wang Feng took out a small bag and threw it at Yixing's feet. "Senior brother Duan wants your star-gathering pill. Here's 100 gold taels as a reward." 100 gold taels couldn't even afford a mid-grade star-accumulating pill. How could he exchange it for a star-gathering pill that was 10 times more valuable than a top-grade one? This was clearly a robbery. Yixing's lips curled up. Senior brother Duan is already a half-martial saint. Why would he want a star-gathering pill? Wang Feng's eyes widened and he shouted, "Senior brother Duan says he wants it. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Today, I wasted a lot of time writing the chapter outline. The 3rd chapter was already at midnight. It was too late, so I couldn't finish the 4th chapter. However, I'll definitely publish the 4th chapter tomorrow. I have nothing to do tomorrow, so I'll write with all my might. Begging for monthly votes. Chapter 161. Because Wang Feng was Zi Shanho's disciple and adopted son, he could be considered Yixing's senior brother. Thus, Yixing had always maintained some respect for him. However, with Wang Feng's current appearance, no matter how magnanimous Yixing was, he could not bring himself to respect him. If it were not for Zi Shanho's face, Wang Feng's mere peak 9th level cultivation was nothing in Yixing's eyes. Yixing coldly glanced at Wang Feng. "What does it have to do with you whether senior brother Duan wants it or not? Your surname is Wang, and you're not a dog. In any case, you're still a 5-star orange fate, and will become a 5-star martial saint in the future. Why are you wagging your tail in front of others?" Many of the nearby ordinary Heaven's Mandate disciples could not help but cheer in their hearts. These words were too sharp. However, they were well said. A 5-star orange fate, destined to become an inner disciple in the future, was wagging his tail in front of others like a dog? This was too undignified. Yixing's words poked at Wang Feng's sore spot. It was like a knife stabbing into Wang Feng's heart, causing Wang Feng to explode like thunder. Wang Feng's qi and blood immediately surged. His face was flushed red as he pointed at Yixing and furiously shouted, "Yixing, you? Who do you think you are? Trash with an ordinary mortal fate has no right to talk about me." Yixing was not as hysterical as Wang Feng. He coldly smiled. "Although I have an ordinary mortal fate, I'm upright and upright. I'm not like someone, a martial saint with a Heaven's Mandate, who has to bend his waist and wag his tail like a dog." The nearby ordinary Heaven's Mandate disciples whispered among themselves. Many of them secretly gave Yixing a thumbs up. Yixing's words struck at Wang Feng's heart. Wang Feng was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. His eyes turned red as he roared, "I'm going to kill you, you trash." However, even though Wang Feng had just entered he was only talking about it. How would he dare to actually attack Yixing? Duan Jinpeng fanned the flames from the side. According to the sect's rules, no matter when or where a mortal fate disciple humiliates an orange fate disciple, an orange fate disciple is allowed to teach them a lesson. Junior brother Wang, do whatever you want. Senior brother will uphold justice for you. His goal was to force Yixing into a dead end. Regardless of whether or not Wang Feng could take care of Yixing, a mortal fate disciple who had entered the sect as the #1 disciple, Wang Feng still had his backing. He would definitely be able to force Yixing to the point where he couldn't bear it any longer and enter the life and death arena. With Duan Jinpeng's permission, Wang Feng became bolder. Clang. Wang Feng unsheathed his sword and pointed it at Yixing, coldly shouting, Today I will teach you a lesson, you reckless trash. Even though Yi Xing had entered the Falling Star sect as the #1 disciple of the Mortal Fate sect, this was only the #1 disciple of the Mortal Fate sect. From the bottom of his heart, Wang Feng looked down on these Mortal Fate sect disciples. In his eyes, they were all a bunch of trash with no future prospects. Even the #1 disciple was the same. As his voice fell, the sword in Wang Feng's hand turned into a ray of sword light and attacked Yi Xing extreme rank martial art, Clear Breeze sword art. The sword was like a clear breeze, and there was no place where it didn't have killing moves. This was an extremely powerful sword art. Wang Feng's swordsmanship was very powerful, but his swordsmanship was very ordinary. His cultivation talent was naturally very good. At such a young age, he had already reached the peak of the 9th level of cultivation. However, his martial arts talent was much inferior to his cultivation talent. Wang Feng's Clear Breeze sword art had just reached the large success stage. Even if Yi Xing didn't use his super brain to scan, there were still many flaws. As his martial arts talent increased, his eyesight also became sharper. Whoosh! Yi Xing's feet moved. His figure was like lightning, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. Wang Feng's killing moves all missed. Wang Feng frowned. He obviously didn't expect that Yi Xing would be able to dodge his Clear Breeze sword art. Wind rustling grass. Wang Feng shouted. He and his sword became one. The sword light was resplendent as he continued to attack Yi Xing. In an instant, rays of sharp sword qi slashed towards Yi Xing. They were endless and enveloped Yi Xing. The sword was like the wind. Wherever it passed, who wouldn't move? Who would be able to dodge? Facing this sword, even with Yi Xing's martial arts talent, it would be difficult for him to dodge. Since it was difficult to dodge, Yi Xing didn't bother to dodge. In an instant, a surging aura exploded from his body. Above his head, a ray of essence rushed out. Origin returning force. Yi Xing's palms instantly condensed 2 bright balls of inner force. Bang 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 bang. These 2 balls of inner force seemed to have a hint of star essence. They were invincible. Wherever they passed, all the sword qi exploded. In the end, the wind-rustling grass's sword power was extinguished. The countless sword lights were reduced to 1 sword. This sword was also blocked by Yi Xing. The tip of the sword was blocked an inch away from Yi Xing's palm. The sharp top-grade weapon couldn't pierce through the ball of inner force in his palm. Yi Xing blocked Wang Feng's sword with one hand, and the other hand directly slapped towards his opponent. The terrifying inner force instantly left his hand and turned into a resplendent palm print. It instantly slashed towards Wang Feng's chest. This move was very similar to the origin returning force. However, Yi Xing only released a ball of inner force. Its power was much weaker than the origin returning force. But for a martial artist at the peak of the 9th level, this was still an extremely terrifying attack. Wang Feng's sword was still facing off against the origin returning force in Yi Xing's other palm. How could he have the time to defend himself? In the nick of time, Wang Feng could only withdraw his hand and attack with his palm. In terms of sword skills, although Wang Feng was not outstanding, he was not bad either. However, his mastery of palm techniques was really bad. He had not even reached the great mastery of the extreme martial art, mountain-crushing palm. Bang! Wang Feng's mountain-shattering palm collided with Yi Xing's origin-returning force palm print, creating a loud explosion. Even a top-grade martial arts that had reached the perfection stage might not be as powerful as a top-grade martial arts of the transcendent stage, let alone a top-grade martial arts that hadn't even reached the great completion stage. The result was obvious. Wang Feng only felt a terrifying force coming towards him. His body shook violently and the blood in his body instantly surged. His body involuntarily flew backwards. He was directly sent flying. There was even blood at the corner of his mouth. He had already been injured. In terms of strength, Wang Feng was the weakest among all the martial artists at the peak of the 9th level that Yi Xing had fought. His martial arts talent wasn't high to begin with. Moreover, he had a lofty attitude that he was destined to become a martial saint. Since he would be strong in the future, why should he spend so much time bitterly cultivating martial arts? With such an attitude, his strength naturally couldn't be compared to ordinary martial artists of the same level. In the Zishan County, Wang Feng was Zi Shanho's disciple. He had never suffered any setbacks and had never had a real battle with martial artists of the same level. This had created his arrogant personality. At the same time, he hadn't experienced any hardships, so he didn't have a strong state of mind. Therefore, after entering the Falling Star sect and being taught a lesson by Duan Jinpeng, he immediately betrayed Zi Shanho and joined Elder Hua Tianchu's side. Duan Jinpeng had made him obedient because Duan Jinpeng was both a martial saint and a half-step martial saint. Duan Jinpeng's cultivation was higher than his, and he wasn't an ordinary martial saint. Therefore, after being taught a lesson by Duan Jinpeng, Wang Feng was immediately convinced. As for Yi Xing, his cultivation was lower than his, and he was only an ordinary martial saint. Even so, he was still defeated. Not to mention the word convinced. In his heart, he was simply enraged. His mentality was almost twisted as he looked at Yi Xing with eyes full of hatred. As for Wang Feng, Yi Xing didn't look him in the eye. In his eyes, this kind of person was the real trash. He didn't put him in his eyes. His attention was mainly on Duan Jinpeng. Sure enough, as soon as Wang Feng was defeated, Duan Jinpeng came out to speak, an ordinary martial saint beating up a martial saint Heaven's Mandate disciple. Yi Xing, you've got some dog guts. Yi Xing knew that Duan Jinpeng was purposely targeting him, so he didn't give him any face. He said, "Which dog eyes of yours saw me beating him up? It was self-defense. Do you understand? Only he can attack, but I can't fight back?" The surrounding ordinary martial saint disciples were shocked. This Yi Xing was too bold. Duan Jinpeng wasn't a new disciple like Wang Feng, but an existence in the top 10 of the outer disciples ranking. To be able to rank in the top 10 among the thousands of outer disciples, what kind of terrifying person was this? Moreover, a small number of ordinary martial saint disciples had some connections in Thiso. They had some understanding of the outer disciples. They knew that Duan Jinpeng's nickname was Bloodhand, and that he was a famous fierce person. Yi Xing dared to say that his eyes were dog eyes. Did he not want to live anymore? Yi Xing's expression was normal after saying this, but many ordinary martial saint disciples were sweating for him as their hearts thumped. Duan Jinpeng's face turned green, then he licked his lips and laughed. Sure enough, the ignorant are fearless. Self-defense? Well said, then you can continue with self-defense. While speaking, Duan Jinpeng's aura soared and covered the sky. It was obvious that he wanted to attack Yi Xing. Wait! Yi Xing shouted. Duan Jinpeng didn't attack, but his accumulated aura didn't dissipate. A fierce glint flashed in his eyes. What, now you know fear? Yi Xing wildly laughed. You think I'm afraid of a dog egg like you? If you want to fight, then let's fight. What's the meaning of this? Come to the life and death stage, do you dare? The surrounding ordinary martial saint disciples were dumbfounded. Did they hear wrongly? Go to the life and death stage? This was Duan Jinpeng, who was ranked 10th on the outer disciple list. Among the half-step martial saints, he was a first-rate expert. Apart from the few ranked above him, he could sweep through the entire outer sect. On the other hand, Yi Xing was just a new disciple. Although he entered the sect as the first place of the selection, he was only ranked first among the ordinary martial saints. Above him were a large number of martial saints, as well as countless old disciples and half-step martial saints. In the end, he was ranked in the top 10. The gap between them was too big. Even Wang Feng, who hated Yi Xing to death, was deeply shocked by Yi Xing's words and couldn't believe it. Duan Jinpeng was also shocked at first, but he quickly reacted. Wasn't this what he wanted? However, before he could make a move, Yi Xing couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to go to the life and death stage. This was courting death too early. In any case, this was what he wanted. Duan Jinpeng laughed. Ha! Good, let's go to the life and death stage. 55555555555. Today's monthly votes are too little. Half a day has passed and I don't even have 20 votes. I beg for monthly votes. I beg for monthly votes. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.